Well, hello, everyone. All of you that are here watching right freaking now on this channel or this Facebook or this Twitter or wherever you're watching.
What's up? Here I am.
Glad to see you here.
Welcome to the Unsung Screamers live show on this day. Why do you have 8/14/22?
I don't know why I have 8/14. It should be 4.
It is not August 14th.
It is not August 14th. I think I'm wishful thinking on that.
On this day, April 14th, Tax Day Eve, episode number 81.
We are here. I'm just getting this shit.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to talk and do this shit at the same time.
Oh my God.
That's what I'm doing. That's what happens when I'm multitasking over here. Our camera's way off. I'm going to sit back.
It's good to see everybody. Why am I
Sounds like it's
distorting?
overdriving. No. I hope we're not blowing everybody's ears away on this.
No, we're not. It's just whether I'm being overdriven.
Just to say hi. Oh, you said hi on there. How cute. Kanita's driving back from Ava, listening to the music. Hi, Kanita. Good to see you. Good to see you. She says, Tara. Tara. Jared says, I love this song. Thank you very much. Yeah, and he says also, can we just not skip spring and jump right into summer? That stinks. So, yeah. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Everybody's here. We have a guest in the studio.
Yeah, we do.
Who's our guest, Dan?
Don't give it to me.
Well, I was talking. I wasn't talking. I posted earlier. I said our guest is Brent Puglisi, and if it looks like that doesn't say that, Puglisi is how you say that last name, and it is Brent Puglisi. He is my brother. Here he is, right here, everybody. That's him. Look at him. He just flew in from Sweden, and boy, are his arms tired.
Oh my God.
No, we're not doing that.
End it now. Just end it now.
Stop. We're done. We're done with the show.
Dear Lord.
I'm just saying. That's it.
Brent, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I will go ahead.
Just freaking out. It's my I'm losing my podcast virginity right now. It's a special moment.
You'll warm up just fine.
Yeah.
Just be
I
gentle.
think you'll be all right.
Throw that mic a little closer to you because
Okay,
we're
getting
super
closer.
sexy and loud, and you're all quiet and timid. So, and yours is overdriving a little bit. I'm not sure why.
That's
but,
all right.
All right. Okay. We'll just do that.
I will say that normally I try to kind of think about some things, like, hey, we got a guest, and so I should probably, do some research and try to be ready. And I just will tell everybody watching right now, I didn't do that on purpose with Brent. Mm-hmm. Because you can get him going on any subject in the world and everything is going to be just fine.
That's code for I talk a lot of shit. I just keep going.
Well, you're in good company with that then,
It's good talk.
because it's called Screamers for a reason.
Yeah.
And
you gotta try to give the credentials here.
The credentials.
I'm sure he won't brag on himself.
All right. Well, there's such a list, and I'm sure I'll forget. But just first of all, you're my brother. Mm-hmm. Second, what would you say is second? You're a father. Second in your top 10 things that you are.
Oh my God,
that's a lot of pressure.
I know.
Yes, I'm a father.
They don't need to be put in order.
All right.
Dear Lord.
He's my brother. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a teacher. He's an Aikido. What would you call that? What do you call it?
Super master.
Really?
No. Yes, I'm a super master.
I didn't know what the word was. Some of these people are like, that's my sensei, and it's some 30-year-old guy, white guy, whatever. So I didn't know.
No, sensei just means literally someone who's walked on the path in front of you.
Oh, really?
So
teacher.
It means teacher, yeah. But you can also, it means you can be a martial arts teacher. You can be a teacher of drinking tea. You can be a teacher of painting or a classroom teacher.
Okay.
In Japan, it's all the same thing.
Gotcha. But it's mostly recognized by us as a teacher of martial arts.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then what else? What else are you?
He's lived in 27 different countries, and he speaks 13 languages fluid.
Fluid.
I've passed through 27 different countries, right. And I can only speak 2 languages fluid, and 1 not so fluid.
Right.
Have you lost some of your Chinese?
Most of it.
Most of it.
Although I have a couple of Chinese students in my class now, and they were talking shit and acting up, and I just called them on it because I understood what they were saying.
Yeah.
And they were like, and they like, and it took them a while to remember that they're not supposed to appreciate my accent. You know, at first they were stunned and they were like, "Oh, well, that was, but it's bad accent." You know, and I was like, "Oh, but better than most," they said. You know, and I was like, "Thanks, Julia. That's sweet. Thank you."
So what's the other language that you speak fluid?
Fluid? Well, I'm pretty good with English.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that part.
No, and Swedish, because I live in Sweden
Yeah.
and I spent a long time studying.
You have been in Sweden how long?
Well, we came to 20 years now.
20 years.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, you have lived outside the U.S. for probably more than half your life.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Since I was, well, I guess I traveled a lot from 18 to 24, but when I left the country, I was 24. And then I went back for 2.5 years, and then I left, and I've been back, but I haven't lived back in the States.
So it's right at more than half your world, half your life.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think so.
Nice.
Yeah. I think we'll get into some of that story here in a little bit, how he
Yes.
took off it.
Just said, I'm out. I'm out.
He had a stick with one of them tied-on bags
Yeah.
when
With
he
a-
was like 8 years old.
With a bandana. Like,
Yeah. I'm a little hobo.
I'm out of here.
I'm going to travel the world.
And I'm
We got some stuff coming in.
I'm never coming back.
I'm going to quickly acknowledge Brian Betancourt because he asked me if I got his note, and I did get his note. I don't want to get into any of the details much other than I had a terrible day, and I thought I was going to need Brian Betancourt's help, and I asked him,
Oh,
and he came back and he said he could help me, but I had already found a way.
okay.
So thank you so much, Brian, for
Gotcha.
even being willing.
Mike McCorder says, I see you guys. He was our guest last week. This Mike
Bev
here.
says hi, Brent.
Yeah, there's Bev. What else did we miss?
Yeah, Jared mentioned that Brent's mic should come up, but I think that's just us getting it a little closer to him.
Yeah.
Close-
Yeah. And
really?
if you want to
Okay.
sit back in your chair, you can just pull that,
No,
just
I'm-
like
I'm-
this.
Yeah, this thing's
Just-
really heavy, so it'll hold it.
Yeah.
Hey,
It won't fall.
All good. All good.
I think Jared's got a good question for Brent, and I
Ah.
won't be able to pronounce this person's name. Can you?
I can't see what you're talking about.
Question for Brent
right there on the
is Rose, is that
Nyland?
Nyland from the Golden Girls? Is that a good Scandinavian representation?
Do you remember that show?
I do remember the Golden Girls. I don't specifically remember who Rose Nyland is.
The Betty White character.
The Betty White character. No.
Was it? Yeah, wasn't she? Yeah.
What? I don't even know why. Was she Scandinavian? Was Betty White Scandinavian?
Apparently, he
Well, I don't know
knows
if she
everything
was.
about
I don't know
Golden.
if she was, but her character was.
Well, her
apparently.
character, yes. Rose Nyland.
Right.
The way it's spelled, it looks
So that wouldn't
Scandinavian.
necessarily mean.
I wish I knew more about that. I can't say.
She was a very clever character. She was very funny, but she was also dingy. So that's the nutshell of Rose. Rose,
Yeah.
the character.
I don't know if that's a description of all Swedes or
How about
Scandinavians. I don't know. They're smart and clever, but they're not dingy. They're not dingy at all.
How about the Swedish chef? Is that a better representation?
Actually,
We all know him.
Actually, in point of fact, the Swedish chef's sound and accent is Norwegian.
Right.
It's not Swedish.
And he's a redhead, which is interesting.
Which is not anyone from there. It's from Scotland. I mean, I didn't. Good one on. I didn't realize the Swedish chef was a redhead.
No,
I thought he just had like a pencil head.
Or was that Beaker?
You're thinking of Beaker.
Beaker.
I'm thinking of Beaker.
You're thinking of scientist and Beaker.
That guy. I'm thinking of
Yeah, that's Beaker.
Beaker. Oh, there goes your phone. That's what I'm thinking. Jared says she always rattled off Scandinavian words, but I don't know if they're real.
Yeah, I'd have to like.
You'd have to actually
Google
watch.
that shit and check it out.
Right. I'm gonna Google real quick and find out what the Swedish chef looks like. Oh, I got to change computers. Holy crap! Over here. Go on. Go ahead. I'm just looking up something.
What are you looking up?
Doesn't matter. Just see, he is a redhead.
Look
Look at that.
You didn't set screen share up on the
I didn't.
the Big Mac?
No, but the Swedish chef. Everybody's Googling right now anyway.
It's
So.
looking like the Swedish chef's kind of a.
Kind of brownish, reddish hair.
That's so weird. I was also thinking of Beaker in my head.
So yeah.
I was not thinking of that
No.
at all. But yes, no.
Interesting.
That is correct because
He's kind of reddish brown.
Google never lies.
Google never lies. No. And then Beaker, Beekeer from Sesame. Right? Sesame Street? Yeah. He's redhead.
That's literally.
That's exactly who I was thinking in my head. The tall, skinny with the on the top of his
Those
head.
memory lies.
Oh my gosh.
He's
Okay.
not from Sesame Street.
What is he from?
He's also from the Muppets.
Oh, is he?
I think so.
He is a Muppet.
Beaker?
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's a Muppet.
I was wrong. I was wrong. All right, cool. All right. Beekeeper had bright reddish orange hair. Okay, there's our comments. We got about 10 or so people hanging out with us. I told everybody to ask you questions too. So a lot of people know who you are and where you and what a little bit about you and everything like that. So some might have a teacher question or some might have a whatever question.
I've got a question for you.
Do it.
What do you think about Elon Musk wanting to buy Twitter?
If he takes Twitter and shoots it into space, that would be great. And that would be awesome. And then we wouldn't have to tweet anymore.
Right?
I literally don't know what that's about.
Right.
Why
I do.
he's doing that. Because Elon Musk wants to do everything and he can. So
He pretty much can.
go for it, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what he said it's about is about the free speech aspect. And if he owned it, he would let people have free speech and not be canceling so many people for some things, yes. Some people are just evil. And some things that are said are getting canceled because they're just hurting somebody's little feelings.
Yeah.
Now, that I understand that because it keeps people, like it's trying to say don't bully. So I get that. I get that point. But it's also like you can't say anything on that that's not to their liking anymore. Even if it's not bullying, it's just something they don't agree with.
Right.
And that's why people are getting canceled. So that's what Elon has said is his reason for making this $43 billion offer.
Right.
43 billion.
Because he's got that.
Yeah.
It's
in his back pocket
it's
usually.
my side project, 43 billion. What the hell?
Nuts.
I have thoughts on that. I talk about, first of all, I teach sixth grade, so social media is, the research indicates that's the worst time for social media. It messes with kids' brains, especially young girls. And I do lessons in class all the time about deconstructing what happens on social media. And it's really just a complicated version of sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me, except now names are killing us because people are talking all this shit to each other all the time. And it's more like one day I came in and I was really pissed off about the world and social media. And I was just like, guys, you have to stop reading the toilet bathroom walls. Stop it.
That's a good point.
I said, look at the comment stream. Pick one, pick any section. Let's pretend for a minute that a genuine comment gets written on a YouTube thing or on Twitter. And then follow, 6, 8, 10, 15, 20 comments later. If there's like 1,000 or 2,000, 10,000, million people watching, it turns to crap. It turns to a bathroom wall instantaneously. And one day I'd come back and I was in the bathroom and at some bar or whatever, and I'm looking at the wall going, oh my God, it's exactly a Twitter feed. And it makes about as much sense, and it's about as useful. That's why I start with, if he sends it off into space and blows it up in the sun, we're all going to be better off.
Yeah.
And
Yes. And he might.
Yeah.
That's another reason he might want to buy it, to end it.
Yeah. How do you, at this point though, when I'm teaching, because I think about it pedagogically for the kids, we're not going to get rid of it. And maybe we shouldn't. It's been a development for all of us. Look at us right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and so it's not about, it's the same solution that we've had for thousands of years, which is educate. We have to teach them how to discriminate the good and the bad, which speaks to the free speech issue. Say what you want, but I'm also allowed to call you on that and go, no, that's not right. So you need more speech. That's the typical thing you hear.
Yeah.
It's not less speech or not limiting speech. It's more speech is the cure. But it's also more thought behind your speaking. Don't fucking speak until you've thought about it a while.
Yeah.
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 If I see something that upsets me, I stop and I wait before I tweet. I've never tweeted though.
You've never tweeted.
I mean, my God, just calling it tweeting derides the entire experience. It's like, I can't tweet something cogent. One does not tweet smart things. I mean, in my mind, I mean, but people love Twitter. I listen to all they do is examine what happened. Oh, on Twitter, you got to have this, and news reporters all have to have Twitter now. And I'm like, I'm not sure it's the right way forward. It doesn't enliven my mind.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it's for, other than
Bitching, just pissing and moaning and bitching.
Pissing, mostly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some things happen, and I'm sure some third world country has been absolutely saved by Twitter and Facebook.
Right, sure.
Because they've been able to organize movements that have saved workers and done amazing things, but that's not the reality that those of us that live in the Western world live in. And that's not even what anybody in the West, in the Twitter world, the Twitter sphere, they call it, right? The Twitter's out there in the Twitter sphere. I'm just like, I'm not sure who it's for. It's for each other. Mm-hmm. It's a mutual admiration society. And I don't know.
Or a mutual hate
I'd rather
society.
go cry in the dark than participate in that.
I'd rather go cry in the dark.
And I do sometimes. But that's okay.
And that's okay, Brent.
Better than tweeting.
Yeah. Oh, I had a question, but I can't remember. We'll go on. When it comes to you're teaching junior high or middle school or whatever you want to call it, and you are, not only is it the worst age for like social media these days, it's just the worst age.
Worst age? Why?
Because, and I say worst, I shouldn't say worst. I should say it's the most transitional age because you're becoming an adolescent from being a child, and you've got all these crazy hormones going on, and everything happens. All these changes happen, and it's a drastic change to some kids. And I've heard so many people say junior high was the worst time of my life,
Right.
Next to bad relationships. But it's such a big change, and everybody needs approval and wants approval. And so now with social media, back in the day, before internet and all this, kids would tease each other. There's bullying. It was there, but it was local, and it was very few people. Now on social media, you might have 100 people calling you names. And that's overwhelming, I would think, to youngsters.
Right.
And then in junior high, when you're trying to be accepted and you're dealing with all these changes, and you're dealing with all these changes, then that adds to all of that. And I think that's the problem with why social media is so bad these days, because those years were always so tough on children, I think.
I think there's a mind exploding, 4,000 thoughts in my head, so bear with me. The problem is the focus is on the outside, because everything we've just complained about and discussed, and everything that gets discussed in the groups in school where the teachers meet and they talk about how to fix everything, it's all focused on what's going on. Oh, so-and-so said this about so-and-so, and then they did this, and we're all focusing on the bullies, or we're all focusing on the people with the voices, and we're not properly. We just talk about it, but we're not properly strengthening the victims. And bear with me for a minute. We're going to detour into my earlier teaching career, which was kindergarten, which is where the real juice is. I spent 10 years teaching 5-year-olds, and that's really where you get used to this idea of you ignore the bullies and you strengthen the victim. And when you do that, there's no one left to bully, right? And so in the social media realm that you're discussing, middle school, what does that mean, and what does it look like? It's teaching. I'm not going to say the word critical thinking because it's so meaningless at this point. But it is the ability to think and to analyze and to not just take on oneself that which is said to you. When someone says or writes then just go, oh, I don't really, be curious, ask them, talk, or just let it bounce off of you. Let it roll past. There needs to be health class, like internet hygiene, meaning how do I take a shower? How do I wash this off me? I have to participate in it. I have to use it. I have a project I want to do. How do I keep myself clean? How do I not be contaminated by it, yet participate in it? And that's not a modern problem. That issue has been raised by very many people throughout the ages. And, and in many different books, you can find evidence of how do I live and purify myself? How do I stay clean? How do I, and you can find this in a lot of literature. And this is what's missing whenever my school meets to discuss these things. We support the victims by pandering to their needs in a way. oh my God, this might be dangerous.
Oopsie.
But I'm just saying, I think that the focus is wrong. And I spend the time in my class building the social connections within us in person, and then teaching people how to resist the pressures by creating, and this goes back into the idea of martial arts, creating a dojo for them. And what is a dojo? It's a place it's a safe space to have fights. Why are we having a fight in a safe space?
Yeah.
To practice, so we don't hurt one another. Because it's not about hurting one another. It's about getting stronger, so I can go out in the real world and do something, or and in martial arts, I don't defend myself. Yes. How do I go on the internet and defend myself?
Right.
And go to any cliche martial art movies you want. Karate Kid. It's on the inside. It's a cliche, but it's about understanding that it's not really. It's about avoiding the fight. Why get there? Why is that your first choice? Go. There's other things, and I think there's a training that's missing for children about how to interact with that. So what we do is, no, we're going to ban mobile phones. Like that's going to work,
Right.
We banned mobile scones.
Mobile scone.
Oh,
I would
yeah.
like to have a mobile
Those
scone,
two.
please.
I've got mobile scones.
May I please have a mobile scone?
Mobile scone. No, you ban mobile phones, and then so you start taking them away, and what starts to happen? Well, my friend Matt, he took a mobile phone from a girl. He took it. She pulled out her spare. We were 2 months into the policy, and kids started carrying spare phones.
God.
Now that has a whole world of problems around it, but then they work around it. They go this way, and it destroys our relationships with the kids because now we're always picking on them. Now we're policemen instead of teachers. We're policing a situation. Now, policing is often necessary and part of our job. That's not that's not. But it's when it's always that, you're not going to solve the problem by taking away the tool.
Right.
It's not going to happen. We should educate on how to use it better.
Absolutely.
And I think, and then the rest of this conversation that could take 24 hours is how to do that.
Yeah.
And there's ideas about that, but let's go.
An emotional defensive dojo class. That sounds amazing.
I called it theater school. I'm not even joking. That's what you do in theater school. You learn how to experience emotion without being attached to it.
Oh, wow.
So that you can present it to others. That's what everybody thinks. Oh, I was told all the time, oh, you're training to be an actor. You must be a really good liar. And the only word we used in theater training was honesty. Yeah. Can you present an honest emotion? Can you have an honest moment?
Right.
And you'd see people to be a moment where they're practicing in a kitchen and the husband says something to the wife and the wife drops the fork and knife on the table. And you do that moment 100 times so that the sound of the utensils dropping on the table was authentic, was honest. And it has to do with putting yourself in the right relationship to the other person, to the script, to the big idea of the story that you're trying to tell, to the audience. And then you practice and get more and more honesty in the moment. So which means as the actor, you have to be experiencing an emotion and knowing it's fake.
Yeah.
Which means I'm distanced. I've distanced myself from my emotions, so I'm able to see it. And when I can see it, I can allow it to pass through me and become obviously the next scripted moment I have to do. And it passes through me. And then as it does that, and I can become more aware of that, I can tweak the emotion for the sake of presentation to an audience.
Yes.
I'm talking about that for real life situations.
Right.
Where you say something to me. I'll do it with kids where let's piss each other off. And I call it the anger game, or you do whatever, and you have two kids sit in a chair and face each other, and just it starts. You just do it physically. You do it with a poke. They poke you in the chest, and you poke you in the chest, and they poke you in the chest, and you poke you in the chest.
We've talked about this.
You poke in the chest, and you poke, and it sounds a little repetitive and boring. Let it go. Let it go. Mm-hmm. Just let them keep doing it, and then they laugh, and the crowd giggles, and because the rest of the kids are learning how to watch quietly and respectfully, they poke and poke and poke. I guarantee you, let it go 3 minutes. The tough kids, let it go 5. One of them is going to get upset, and one of them, they're going to start playing with it and poke too hard. Then what? And then when the emotion comes and they actually start getting angry at each other, your job as the coach is to go, stop.
Good job. Yeah.
What are you feeling? Mm-hmm. How's it feel? Where does it feel?
Instead of reacting.
Instead of reacting to it. Now, can you then you can add words and you build from there. And that's just one example of a thing that you can do over and over and over.
You talked about an exercise one time about the bullying thing. And it was something about like, call me all these insults.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've just seen people do kind of examples of how to fend off bullies, which is just to continually respond to them with, agree with them and just be
Praise them.
Unpenetrable, if that's a word. Is that a word?
Sure. We'll make it a word. Unpenetrable.
Like where somebody says, oh, well, you're a dumb idiot. And your response is like, yeah, you're right. I'm a dumb idiot. And the more you just kind of not take that bait, the bully gets to a point where they don't even have the option to keep going because it's not affecting
Their
them.
stones
Because that's
become
part of their
non-sharp.
life's blood
Yeah.
is to affect you and to upset you.
Yeah. I've done that by, instead of saying, you're right, I'm a dumb idiot, I have them, there's a common therapy technique called mirroring.
Yep.
And I just have the kids mirror. Oh, you're a dumb idiot. You said I'm a dumb idiot.
Yeah.
I haven't admitted to it. I haven't said I'm a dumb idiot.
True.
I haven't agreed with you. I've just said, I noticed that you said that.
Right.
But you really are. I really heard you the first time.
Right.
You know, and just go with that for a long time. But it's dangerous. You've got to be there as the coach because it can get physical. Because that bully is going to try to take it to the next level if they don't get crushed.
Yeah.
They'll stop or they'll go up.
Yeah.
You know, it goes back and forth. Can I tell a really weird anti-bullying story?
Absolutely.
This is like when I was in Taiwan. I taught at a bilingual school and it was mostly Chinese kids, little kindergartners, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. And me and my two friends, we were struggling about behavior issues, bullying. There was groups of kids going all around like that. So we went off, we discussed it. We had this 1.5 hour long lunch every day. It was great. We could discuss these things and we would discuss it. And we went to our corners and we said, we're just going to pick a method and go do it. You know, I was just beginning in Aikido and I thought, these Aikido moves, it's all like using your own enemy's force against you and all these cliches in my head that I loved and still love, but realize they're cliches now instead of the truth. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do Aikido. Okay. And my friend Brian, he's like, I'm studying Gandhi. We're going to go Gandhi. We're going to teach the kids peaceful resistance, strength, but resistance. And my other buddy was like, I'm going to do something. And he just started singing songs with his kids. And we never really knew what he was doing. So I did my method. It failed horribly because I lacked knowledge. I didn't really understand. This is 20, 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. I know what I should have done then, but I know it now. And that didn't help me then.
Okay.
But my idea is I tried to do exercises and blending and mixing energies. And it didn't work at all. The Gandhi worked. It was great. And he came back and we said, this is great. I had them join hands. If ever a bully attacked them, they found 2 friends, joined hands, sat down and stared at the bully and didn't do anything and just stared at the bully. And it works and it worked and it worked. And I said, it's great. So I did it, taught it to my class. His class didn't have Jenny. And the bully came and picked on Nina. And Jenny grabbed 2 friends, walked up and kicked the shit out of Brian. All 3 of them on the floor, 5-year-olds, like smacking, kicking this kid, pick on Nina. Yeah. And they used the same idea and they applied it in a completely wrong way. Oh my God. I was like, Jenny, don't do that. You're right. You're actually right, but don't do that to Brian. But it turned out that my friend Scott actually had the right idea. He went off and read this book called, if you're out there and you need a book about children, Children the Challenge by Rudolf Dreikirch. It's the only book. The only book. Him and a woman named Vicky Stoltz, sorry. It's a series of case studies that talk about how to deal with children and their issues. And the problem with it is you got to read it, study it, digest it, and then enact it. But it's all about teaching things like there's only 3 things. There's belonging, significance, and fun. If people all want to belong, that's their motivation,
yes.
Period.
Yes.
What they're doing to be of significance, to have value and meaning. And everyone wants to have fun doing it. There's a lot more to life than those 3 things, but that covers almost everything you want to do.
Right.
And in terms of crafting an approach to behavior, that's what you need to do. And that's how you can. And then there's a million different tools in there to do that. It's a wonderful book, and he gave it to me, and I've read it and I've studied it, and it's the way forward because
Say it one more time. The title?
Children, the Challenge.
Like children, the challenge.
Colon, the challenge. Written in the 50s, so it's a bit antiquated, and because he was dealing with things like, we need to teach parents that smacking their kids is wrong. I mean, that's an issue for them. And then there's a whole chapter about why you shouldn't hit your kids. Might still be relevant to some families today.
Sure.
And
if that was said back then, that's actually pretty
cool.
cool.
It was super revolutionary at the time, and there's a whole history of it and what it is. But it's a much larger approach than taking away a phone or forbidding. My son's not going to have a phone until he's 16, and things that it's dealing with the outside. This goes and attacks the inside. Okay, yeah, I know.
That's fantastic.
Mostly, I was thinking about Jenny and her misappropriation.
I love that.
A really good idea.
Holding hands and beating ass.
Oh my God, that's funny. She had the organization down, but the execution was a bit wrong.
A bit wrong, but I debriefing with the little girl, she was like, but it worked.
Yeah.
And there's the problem with it works, but it's not right.
Yeah.
Ouch. What do I do?
So I'll just take a little quick break from conversation and talk about some comments that are coming in. So, Gail, his mama says hi.
Oh, hi there.
Also, Matt, hi Matt Stewart. He says Twitter is the shitter of the internet.
Word up.
Bev says, Elon, buy Facebook. Mike Recorder, what is he saying here? He says, I'm upset that with all his money, Elon Musk hasn't funded the making of Grease 3. That was one of our topics last week was Grease 1 versus Grease 2. Well, there is no such thing as Grease 1. It's just Grease. Oh. And it's the better one. But anyway, and then...
It's the only one I've seen.
Bringing back some of the Golden Girls things. Jared, can you read that long paragraph?
I'm not going to be able to pronounce anything. Brent might be able to. Mm-hmm. He said, referring to the Golden Girls business. Here, I Googled 3 of Rose's sayings.
I got to hear this.
He's a Golden Girls fan.
As they said in Saint Olaf. Is that right?
Saint, yeah, that looks
what is that?
Looks like Helder Birdler Flurgen.
Oh,
Nurser Blurgen.
Although shockingly, there is no English word for Helder Burden Flurgen. Loosely translated, it means I hope you have a license to carry that Glurfurten. Gerflurflin. Another phrase, blow it out your
Tubin
burbles.
They're called Longenherden. That's something that she said on the show, claiming to be Scandinavian.
It feels pseudo-German to me. It doesn't strike me as especially Scandinavian. But I don't know. But keeping in mind that Finnish is also considered Scandinavian, but the language base is entirely different.
It's very different too.
Yeah, it's super different.
All the Scandinavian languages, when I hear them, they sound lovely.
Yeah.
They sound lovely, and they all sound different.
Yes.
But
Norwegian and Swedish are very, very close. But still, they have different, and there's 2 different Norwegians. Danish is close to Swedish, but it sounds very, very different. I can read Danish, but I can't understand spoken Danish.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When you read it, you understand what it's saying, though?
Yeah.
Oh,
I can read it. I mean, they have different letters. They have different ways of things, and there are many different words. I don't read, but I can do that. But Finnish is completely. Finnish and Hungarian are closer than Finnish and Swedish.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. Freaking cool.
Nerding out on.
By the way, Clyde Stewart says he can't hear, just saying hi. I'm assuming he can't listen because he's driving to California.
Oh.
I'm assuming that.
He should be there by now.
You think so?
Yeah.
It is Thursday.
He's
he left
probably
Monday.
in Vegas.
Oh, maybe so. But he said he can't hear. Maybe it's because he's in Vegas. Ding, 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 ding. With all the,
I don't know.
Anyway, he says hi. Glad to see you got your tire fixed. He had dragging a trailer to California. He had a blowout on his trailer. So.
Ouch.
Right on. So, the kid stuff. Kid talk is really good. I was going to ask you this, Brent. So there's a term nowadays that a lot of people use, and I've actually said it myself, that kids these days are bubble wrapped. They're not allowed to get hurt. They're not allowed to fall down. I still believe that, but I also believe there's a limit to that. Like and psychologically, if you never get hurt and you never fall down and you never fail, you don't know how to handle failure, being hurt, or falling down.
Yeah.
There's truth to that.
I think so.
However, you don't want to just go around shoving your kids down. I understand that.
Yeah.
So
I do.
It kind
Speak
of
for yourself.
it kind of goes in the same realm as what you were saying, though, is that teach them how to handle this stuff somehow. But some of it is actually falling down and skinning your knee. So you create better balance. You learn how to use muscles differently and things like that.
I'm going to refer to the experts. Jonathan Haidt, The Coddling of the American Mind. It's the book about this topic.
Okay.
And he does a lot of research about that. There's I can't remember the name of the movement, but it's a movement to allow children to be in danger. I'm expressing it harshly, but it means let them take chances.
Yes.
They have to be able to go and play and fall down and do those things. It's tricky, though. I wonder if I am able to have an understanding of my own behavior as a father. My son goes to climbing, like bouldering, like
wall climbing,
full on wall climbing every week, and until I got used to it, I'm like there. But I'm also aware that he needs to climb. I'm also aware that there's a very thick pad underneath him.
Yeah, and a rope on his back?
No.
Oh, no harnesses?
There's no harnesses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not till his grandparents in Holland took him climbing and sent his ass like 30 meters in the air, and there's Grandpa belaying him. You're supposed to have a license to do that, and there he is hanging out up there, wee, look, and they're videoing it and sending us a video. I lost my mind.
I bet you did.
I lost my mind. But that points out exactly what we're saying.
Yeah.
At what point we all have to decide for ourselves. Parents have to decide, when is it coddling and when is it
right?
When is it, and you can go to ridiculous extremes. These the cases where the rich people paid money so that their kids didn't even know that they had failed the college entrance test.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they got them into colleges, and it's all because they're wealthy and connected and all this stuff. That's just so far of a ridiculous example.
Yeah.
It's still the same thing, but it's also stupid and wrong and immoral, but it's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about regular folks raising their kids, and I'm not letting them out of my sight. I think in the 90s, wasn't there this fashion with like leashes?
Yes.
Where
kids a little
were on
harness.
The harnesses, and the kids were on leashes.
I just saw one the other day.
Did you really?
No, seriously. I haven't seen them in a long, long time.
Yeah.
But I mean, what's up with that? I mean, I don't know if we want to go like full on 70s, no seatbelts.
Right.
I'm sure. I'm not sure. I don't think that's coddling a child.
Right.
I think seatbelts. But I do think we need to allow them to explore. And what if you never experience danger? When it actually comes, you freeze. Or you walk into it like a dumbass.
Yeah.
I mean.
And then you don't walk into it again.
Right.
I mean, you touch something that's hot.
Right.
Ow.
Ow.
I might go slower next time.
Right.
Oh, that is hot. I'm not going to touch that. I don't know.
I put it down to kind of our dad was this way. I remember him explaining this, and I do it in my teaching. That is a human being. It's a very inexperienced human being, but it's a human being. Don't talk to it like a child, i.e. a child is not yet.
That's a good point.
Not yet a human.
Yeah.
It's a human being. It's just, it needs experience and time. And maybe the theme is sensei. The child needs someone who's walked the path ahead of them to show them the way. Don't walk it for them. That's the difference, so it's about respect. And if you think about it as respect, you can watch a child doing an activity like something dangerous, climbing, and you can watch it with respect and let them respect them. And then since your focus is respecting them and allowing them space, you'll know when to step in, because it's no longer an issue about respect. Now it's safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you're going too damn high too soon.
Right.
And then you'll know that because you're not focused on protecting. You're focused on respecting and developing, and see which professional athlete got where they were going by not going too far sometimes? Zero.
Yeah.
Zero.
They all push themselves past limits. That's just one commonplace example, but it's the same in any other thing. You don't get better at piano by always playing slow.
Yeah.
But you never get good at piano unless you play slow.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Right.
so I don't know. The intellectual journey of this is in Jonathan Haidt's book, and it's a fabulous read. So
That's
you should
awesome.
do that.
Just a quick comment. A couple of comments. First of all, Greg and Ange are watching.
Hey, what's up?
That's our aunt and uncle. So hi, Greg and
No
Ange.
way.
Yeah, right here. Hi, Brent and Tara. This is Greg and Angela here. Good job, Brent.
What up?
And I want to go back up to Kanita. She has a question. She goes,
Uh-oh.
"Do teenagers think it's cool to see who stinks the most?" Well, you're teaching sixth graders, so
Well, I have the privilege every year of watching them start to stink.
it's that age. I'm telling you.
And I said watch because it's actually visible. No, I mean, it's just, I got a very sweet email from a parent indicating the various different levels of parents and their comfortableness with speaking about these issues. Dear Brent, hi, I'm so-and-so's mother. As you might know, my son is of a certain age in your class, and yeah, I knew that. And he's starting to be. There's two things that he's starting to have happen that I'm not really sure what to do. He's expressing interest in girls, and I'm afraid that. And she said she's a second language speaker, so his dream of finding a girl, which is not a dream yet, but she's expressing herself that way, might be hindered by the fact that he doesn't smell so nice nowadays. Could you just have a chat with him? Thanks. Oh my God, it's on my plate now.
It's your responsibility, teacher.
And yeah, it is and it isn't. So I just do a general all call. I do it every year.
Yeah.
And I just, girls have their issues and boys have their issues, and they're both ready to talk to different teachers of different genders at different times. And it can, and you have to be open to it all the time. But in general, you do go, hey. I do two lessons with the kids that are big. One is, hey, you're going to start stinking. And if you're down with that, that's okay. I also teach in a highly multicultural classroom. I have kids from 11 different countries in my class right now.
Wow.
And all total, they speak like 14 different languages.
Holy cow.
I teach in English. We're all
Right.
learning in one language, English.
That's how ISGR is, right?
Yeah, that's how ISGR is. We've got 68 nationalities now, or maybe it's down to 60 now. It's a pandemic.
They all went home.
They all just went home. But so everyone has a different cultural tolerance. Sorry to take your question so seriously, but the different cultural tolerance for body smell, And the other lesson I give is how to pee properly, And sorry, this might get into some difficult territory. The movement at school was at one point to boys need to be taught to piss sitting down because they can't pee into the toilet.
Oh my.
And so they need to piss. And I'm like, I'm not going to teach them to pee like that. I'm going to teach them to pee standing up and take responsibility for that. Now, just in case anyone's wondering, no, we're not actually having pee class.
I was just going to say.
No one is actually peeing
in front of one another
in the dojo
right.
practicing pee. I'm literally taking them in the bathroom going, this is a toilet. And I do it with humor. This is a toilet with piss on it. No one wants to sit on this toilet now, and no one ever will because you've peed all over it. What the hell are you doing, you inconsiderate?
Yeah.
Be considerate. Pee here. It's a big space. I think you can aim properly.
Use some effort here, boys.
Take some time. And I make it humorous. I make it funny. And I go, this is really a serious thing. Don't do this.
And it's a life lesson.
It's a life lesson. And it's in the category of body odor in 6th grade and everything like that.
And the same goes for girls who are so scared of sanitation that they hover and they pee all over the seat. It's the same thing. That
I
happens in women's rooms.
That I can't speak to that.
I can't. But these aren't children. These are adult women.
Okay, I need to know how you hover.
Yeah.
You're squatting.
You can hover just above the toilet seat.
You got that burn in the thighs.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
It's
What do they call it? What's the working out when it's just like that kind of...
Hover burn?
No, well, like asymmetric. Or,
isometric.
Isometrics.
Yeah. But they do it. And the reason I know that they do it is one girl admitted to it that I knew in an office where I worked. Every time she went to the bathroom, instead of, and another thing, if she did piss on the seat, why didn't she wipe it off? She knew she did it. That's the other thing. Because I said it in our office one time with 3 or 4 girls in the office. Who is the woman peeing on the seat? The toilet doesn't flush that hard. It's not flushing water up there. And she was like, I ain't sitting down on that disgusting thing. So she totally admitted that it was her. But then I'm like, why didn't you clean it up?
Yeah.
Like have some, and this is an adult woman.
That's super strange.
Yeah.
I mean, because I would expect it of, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going around peeking in the girls' bathrooms.
True.
Although, because we're an egalitarian society in Sweden, there's no girls and boys bathrooms.
I was just going to ask that,
There's just bathrooms, and there's not, our bathrooms are individual.
Yep.
So you don't go in there as a crowd with multiple people unless you're in 8th grade. And then they all attacked it. And I've pulled more 8th graders out of bathrooms than you can imagine. I walked up, I swear to God, there was an entire class of 8th graders in the toilet. Like it's literally a 1-seater.
Oh my.
And I'm like, how many of you are in there?
Are they doing a prank?
No,
Are they?
They were hiding from English class.
Oh God.
I mean, I was like, what are you guys doing? It's
great.
I don't know, but I think a lot more boys are peeing on seats than girls.
Oh,
I would
yes,
think so,
yes. I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Joshua Poole says the quote of the interview so far is Tara saying, "So when you read Danish, you can understand it."
Isn't that the nature of reading?
Isn't that the nature of reading?
Okay, so
if one understands the language, I think
he's being super funny. I love this guy. That's Joshua. In my defense of that, when I was going as a vocal major, I learned how to speak languages, but I had no clue what I was saying. I just knew how to
singers.
Yes,
yeah,
I just knew how to pronounce it. So that's what I was thinking when I said that, because that's you were actually understanding it. But that's hilarious, Joshua. I love it.
He also said that one of Jordan Peterson's rules for life is when you see kids skateboarding, leave them alone. The concept is children need to learn how to evaluate with the danger, evaluate and cope, I guess, with the danger around them because the world is dangerous.
Yes, absolutely. I think
that's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah.
Let them fall.
I do that. At the same time, maybe wear a helmet.
And maybe not.
But I even doubt that.
Right. And maybe not do the half pipe the first time.
Yeah.
Like get on the skateboard down the flat surface and oopsie, I skinned my knee.
Yeah.
That's what that means to me.
It's really good with the skateboard one, and because I've asked my son's 8, and I often wonder, if he wears, I mean, some kids, it's law in Sweden that if you ride a bike and you're under 15, you have to wear a helmet.
I think that's here too,
and there's
right?
tons of research
I don't know if
that
it's
shows
law, but
that's
it's
a really good idea because head injuries suck and all that stuff. So my little guy wears a helmet. But then, his little friends have elbow pads and the hand pads and the knee pads and all these things. And I'm like, okay, if you're just all padded up all the time, you're just going to take risks. And you're not going to understand what it means to actually fall because you're going to fall and get up and you're protected by your armor, which is the same thing my Australian friends say about American football. They're like, they don't understand what pain is,
right?
Which is not true.
Correct.
But they're
making a point.
They're Australian and they love rugby.
Yes.
And they're trying to say rugby's better, man.
Of course.
Except they do it in that other accent that I don't want to do. And I'm like, okay, but I don't know if you're going to pound into each other like that. Yeah, you're doing it on purpose. You wear padding. But should the kids do that? You're going to get a false sense of security.
Yeah.
Now, do I want my little guy rolling down the hill and falling off and scraping his hand down to the bone? No, I don't want that either. So I think I need to be more attentive and choose his battleground a little better.
Yeah.
Choose the territory first. Like you said, you don't do the half pipe right away and move it up, step it up that way.
That's a good. That's a good.
Definitely let them work. Let them have danger. In doses, small doses.
In small doses, yeah. Yes, or gradually increase the risk as they get better at each obstacle, so to speak. I guess.
So. Which is the definition of training.
Yes.
Like in a martial art, if we go back to that analogy.
And I like how that all this physical training goes back to that emotional training you were talking about of not learning how to take those insults or take those bad things that people say to you, because they do freaking hurt, and it can turn you into something as you get an adult. It can mold you and help you become what you are,
depending
in
on
a bad
how
way.
seriously you take it.
Yes.
If you let it stick to you.
Yeah. Joe Rogan is funny. He's the biggest podcaster, has millions of comments. He doesn't read one single Twitter comment. He doesn't read them. He just doesn't read them. Even if there's a bad one that his assistant tells him about, he's like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
He doesn't take any of them seriously, because he knows a portion of them are going to be negative and he doesn't want to deal with it. And every guest that he has on there that gets frustrated by some of those, he's like, don't read the comments. Stop it. Stop it. And that's, to an extent, different when you reach a certain level, I think, of either fame or whatever it is. He also has the confidence that if he did read it, he'd go, yeah, F that guy.
Right.
So.
But he's also super rich.
Totally.
And he's not on the bottom ground.
Right.
When you're on the bottom, you might need to do that so you're more informed and can get a head start and
That's
figure
a
out
good point.
I don't know. I take the same view of the news. Fuck the news. I don't read it. I don't even know what news to read anymore. but at the same time, I don't want to be uninformed.
True.
So I have to be able to consume media and keep my mind intact. So I'm being critical about it all the time, which is exhausting. And so how does one do that? I don't know. Get practice. Start practicing.
True.
Get busy working on it.
Yeah. I'm interested in connecting dots between, because we had already brought it up earlier, and I think there's some really fun stories that you've got regarding this question. Because I'll even start with, I love hearing all of your stories that you've told about your class, not just tonight, but many other times we've hung out, and you've got really fun stuff about your school, about the way that you teach and everything else. In every teacher I've had from kindergarten through half of college, I never had someone that was like you, and I mean that as a compliment to you, because I wish I had a teacher that taught me how to pee. You know what I'm saying? Now, but it's like there's so much like thorough thought behind a lot of things that you do kind of teach, and
I do try to do
and
that.
Those kinds of things, and I think that's really, really cool. I'm interested at when and why you took off at a very young age to just to try to make this as simple of a question as possible, to travel the world and then landed teaching sixth graders. How from 17 or 18, or that's why I asked when you kind of took off, and what was the motive behind all of that, and how did that land on actually being an educator or being a teacher? Is that what you set out to do when you left high school?
God, no.
When did you take off? Let's start there. Okay. We can unbox this.
Unbox this. I went to Taiwan the first time when I was 24, but that was a process of progressive entrapment starting when I was 18. When I was 18, I went to Germany and Italy, mostly to see my buddy who was stationed in the military in a place called Garlstadt, and I knew he was there. I knew I wanted to travel, and that seemed like a reasonably safe thing to do. Go to where my buddy is.
Somebody already was.
Somebody already was there, and there's a giant military base surrounding him. Felt pretty safe.
Were you kind of miserable here, or was it just, did it sound adventurous? Like, was it
purely adventurous?
Was it like escaping, or was it like, I just want to go adventure?
No, I was 18. I wanted to see the world. I had missed out on a chance to do a year abroad in high school because I really didn't want to, because I was in love with my girlfriend, and, and I was like, but I want, and it is a mystery to me why it was such a clear imperative to me to travel. I didn't understand. And the experience of traveling that very first time, I was with him for a week, and then I went to Italy for a week by myself. And on the plane there, I was literally like, oh man, this is going to change my life. I'm going to be a different person. And then as soon as I said it, I realized, I just jinxed myself. I'm never going to get enlightened on this trip because I just said I was going to get enlightened on this trip. Why did I, and I was really giving myself shit for that thought. And then I do the whole trip and I go back and I'm on the airplane flying back to Kansas City. And the stewardess comes by and there's two Italians sitting next to me. And she says, Coca Vin? And I was like, what are you saying? And she's screaming at these Italians because they don't understand English. And she's saying a French name of a chicken dish, and it just, the absurdity of her saying that, I was like, what? And I said, ma'am, they're not deaf. They're Italian. But all of that was actually happening. But what that absurdity moment did, I went, oh, it did change me. And I just started weeping on the fucking plane. I was just like, and I realized I hadn't jinxed myself. I had just successfully forgotten that I jinxed myself.
Right.
And then I ended up meeting Francesca in Italy and getting lost and going to just so many things happened on that trip. And then I went back and then I was hooked. Okay. Then that was 2 weeks. And the next summer I went for 4 weeks. And then 2 years later, I went with a buddy, and he had everything stolen in Spain. And then I continued traveling, and and every time I went longer until I was 24, and then I was like, I'm out of college. I I'm not having the job I want. Acting, doing theater, being in.
What'd you go to college for?
I started as a music major, and I did a degree in music, and then. I'm sidetracking me, but and then I did it. Then I did it. I had a second degree in theater.
Okay.
Because at the time the music people practiced and the theater people did. They did stuff. They were acting. They were doing it, and it was super exciting.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And so that was going on. So it was adventurous, and I felt I was my truest self alone.
Yeah.
In traveling, and out there, which leads to. So how did I ended up to mix in the teaching bit? In some ways, I have always been a pedagogical thinker because I approach everything from the idea of getting better. How does one improve? Not that one isn't already good enough, but how do you develop something? How do you go from point A to point B? And how do you take someone else on that trip? And it starts with Dungeons and Dragons. I moved to Missouri. I knew how to play Dungeons and Dragons. No one else knew.
It was evil.
It was evil. It was witchcraft.
It was witchcraft.
And and I wanted to play with people, so I had to teach them how to do it. Right. So I became the teacher leader of groups, and that became my theme through high school in a lot of ways, and into college a little bit. So it was like naturally this inclination to instruct. And for everyone's fun, I wanted everyone to have fun. Yeah. So we do that. Then this is an interesting story. I finished college, didn't know what to do. I needed a job. Various jobs were around. I got a job loading boxes in trucks. So I was for DHL. It's a delivery service.
Oh, right, right.
So I'm on the picking line, right? And there's the whistle goes, the line starts, and the packages start coming, man. And when you start, you're not picking off the line is the easy job, which is still a brutal, hard job. But stacking is the harder job. So you're in a truck. Your boxes are being thrown into your truck. You have to check the zip code and then stack it appropriately on a wall and build a wall that doesn't fall down.
Right.
Okay. And you get in there and you're doing this. I chose the night shift from midnight to anywhere between 3:30 and 5 a.m. because you got paid. Instead I got paid $6.25 an hour, which was great. I was chuffed. I was super happy because it was better than the $4.75 that you got in the daytime. And I thought this is the business. And so I'm loading boxes in this truck every night. I lasted a month. because I almost killed this dude because I'm in the truck with this other dude and we're there and he's like, I'm stacking, I'm trying to read these things, I'm hating my life. And he's standing there going, that wall doesn't look so good. I'm like, what are you saying, man? That wall doesn't look so good. You're not stacking it right. I said, you're not doing anything, man. Pick up a box. There's a mountain of boxes behind us. Get busy, dude. Do something here. Oh, man, you suck at this. And this was night after night after night. Oh. The last night, he said it. He said something really wrong, and I dropped the box, and I turned. And I was going to deck him. I was just pissed off. But I stepped, and I landed in the middle of every truck is rollers. Yeah. Because they roll boxes into the truck, right? I stepped on that, and the rollers slid. Oh. I slipped. I fell down. He laughs at me. The line manager crawls over the huge pile of boxes that's backing up. He's like, what the hell's going on here? He sees that I'm about to get up and continue my assault on this guy. He's like, Brent, why don't you go pick for a while? Go out there. I'll finish this up. He took over, and I'm freaking out. And I went home, and I said, that's it. I'm not going back. And then the next day at midnight, I'm like, I got to go to work. And then I just went, I don't have to go to work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to work. So I went to the bar where I knew all my theater friends were going to be.
Right.
I sat down at the bar. Kendall was there, and I started telling this story. They're like, what the hell are you doing here, man? I thought you had this job. I said, yeah, I did, but I don't now. So beers are on me because this is my last few dollars. Right. and let's drink. And I bought everybody a round of beers, and she said, well, I don't know if you're interested, but I just quit my job at the YWCA over in Park, and they're probably going to be looking for just about anybody. I said, I'm in. And I became a teacher. Huh. And I started teaching a creative arts program after schools.
Wow. Like to youngins, children?
Yeah. Well, this was an after school program.
Did I just say youngins?
You said youngins.
To the youngins?
You said youngins.
Holy shit. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, anyway. So I got that job, and then that was my first quote unquote teaching job in a formal setting. And I was freaked out. And it was great because, oh, hey, we're really glad you're here. Here's 12 kids. Go do something fun. See you in an hour. Best training ever.
Right? Just throw you to the wolves.
Best training ever if you're a decent person and you want to do well by the kids.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
So I learned so much in that amount of time. I worked there 8 months. And in that 8 months, I also was playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. And I have always had an interest in Asian philosophy as well as theater. And as these things melded together in the strange little apartment I lived in Kansas City, I started realizing, okay, I could probably fulfill all my needs for adventure for the rest of my life being a hobbit. I could probably do, or leading other people who really want to be hobbits.
To be a hobbit.
Creating werewolf adventures for these guys. I loved it. It was really fun. It was awesome. But I did go, it's not enough. Mm-hmm. It's not enough. I need something more. I need something bigger. And that's when I decided to move to Italy and crush grapes with my feet.
I forgot about that.
That's what I wanted to do.
Right.
And then I'm like, what do I do? How do I do this? Then this is a really long, convoluted story, but I do this, I get that, I make that commitment, I'm going to travel. I start saving up this pittance of money that I earned less. I earned like $5.11 an hour at the Y. Great job. I mean, very valuable, but it was very low pay. And I saved up my money. I was going to travel. I was going to go to Italy. I made all these plans. And then I get a call from Dad. Now, that came later because, oh my God, that's right. Okay, so I'm thinking about travel. I'm getting ready to move. I'm going across the street in Westport in Kansas City, and there's this girl in front of me, and I just can't stop staring at the back end of her. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I just kind of followed her down the street. She walks into a sandal shop, and she works there. She sells sandals. So I go in and pretend to be interested in Birkenstocks. And I did
some flip-flops.
Yeah, I until I realized, okay, I'm a stalker now.
Oops.
I can't, but this is bad. I can't, no. I do like Birkenstocks, but not that much. So I left, and I was like, oh, well. 2 days later, I show up at my friend Brian's house. He had this big hippie house. There was always people coming back and forth. I go in, and the girl is sitting on his couch. And the girl from the sandal store. I was like, oh, wow. So I meet her. I talk to her, get to know her. Her boyfriend, of course, she's got a boyfriend. Story of my life. But, you know, she goes, oh, yeah, my boyfriend, he's Canadian. Of course, he's Canadian. You have a boyfriend, and he's Canadian because they're so intellectual and they're so nice. They are, though.
Yeah.
That's what pisses me off. I mean, they're all like really smart and nice, you know, and so he's come back, but he's been living overseas. Oh, overseas, where? Taiwan. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, of course, he comes in the next day, and I take them both out for Chinese food.
Oh, good.
You know, so we're eating Chinese food, and he's telling me about Taiwan. He says, oh, you want to travel? He says, I give up on Italy, man. Don't go to Europe. He said, go to Asia. Go to Taiwan. You'll be there. He says, what do you want? I said, I don't know. I want money. I'd like a girlfriend, and I want to study something. He says, you can get all that in 3 days in Taiwan. He says, in 3 days, you'll have a job. It'll be someone will be interested in you, and there's tons of stuff to study. I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe I'll do that. That's when Dad calls, right?
Okay.
2 days later, Dad calls. Hey, son, how you doing? I'm like, great. Right? So he did call me more often than I remember.
You know, nice.
Bingo.
We had an earlier conversation.
This is evidence that I was wrong earlier.
Nice. Okay.
He goes, you still interested in traveling? You still planning on that? And I said, yeah. And he says, I know you want to go to Europe, but would you be interested in like the Philippines or Taiwan?
No.
And I was like, what? And my body is trembling because I can't believe the coincidence, right? And I was like, why those two places? Well, I just went on a business trip over there because he had that middle job for a while.
Yeah.
Right. And he had to go and look at their factories.
Yeah.
And he looked at the factories in Taiwan and in the Philippines, and he had frequent flyer miles, which apparently were going to run out, or I don't even understand what the deal was. But he said I could go east, not west.
Wow.
On these days. Or some
stipulation.
Saying that because he had just been to Taiwan.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I'll do it. He says, but okay, got to go by March. And I was like, ooh, that's not enough money. I'm not going to have enough money by March. I know. How do I do that? You know, so he gave me those frequent flyer miles for the first ticket to Taiwan. I saved up $250.
Oh my God.
You know, I had $250 on my backpack, and I had there was this thing that had just started. You could write a letter to someone in Taiwan, and they could write you back instantaneously through a computer.
What?
I know.
What is that?
It was amazing.
That's weird.
It was called email.
No.
Electric mail, man.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And so I was amazed by
I wonder if the kids these days even know it means electric mail.
That it stands for
electric mail.
Or electronic mail.
Right.
Yeah. But
that's funny.
But I got I got two letters. I got one letter from his dad's boss's son who lived there going, man, it's great. You're going to have a great time. Your goals sound reasonable. You'll get a job, all these things. And then I got another longer letter from one of his other colleagues going, this is the worst place ever.
Oh.
No one I know gets jobs here. Because this guy's an engineer and he has no idea what's going on the ground. What I mean by that is he's relatively rich and he's not having to work in an English school to pay his way. So he gives me this doom and gloom. And I'm like, all right, I'm good. I got $250. I'll last and see how long that goes. And I went, and I was there the first time for 6 months. It was brilliant. Studied Chinese, learned stuff, did stuff, backpacked around the island, hitchhiked. When I took a boat, went to Hong Kong. I mean, then I was backpacking in mainland China for 3-4 months.
So I know back in those days, which was, this is back when black and white photography.
Fuck off.
It's back when we saw in black and white.
No, it's not bad. We're all Gen Xers. $250 was a lot more valuable back then than it is now.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like it would have covered all of that. So what did you start doing when you were there to start making some money?
Then... So
in Taiwan, do they speak English over there? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, Taiwan, it's a super interesting place. I mean, it's been owned by the Japanese. So there's 3 languages. There's 5, but a lot of the older people speak Japanese because they grew up speaking Japanese because it was pre World War II. It was Japanese, but there's Taiwanese, Mandarin. some people speak English. This information is like 35 years old. So
Right.
Because the English levels have changed. But yeah, there was a lot of people that spoke English, but nothing was in English.
Right.
I got there, dropped me off at the Taipei Hostel. What a great place. Hey, shout out to anybody that's been there. It's a awesome dump where it was a hub of teachers. So, I didn't know that. I went there, you sleep in a cot in the back, and, and there's a whiteboard, and sometimes they have jobs to do. And I was terrified. I was like, you go outside, and it's exotic and weird and Chinese, and all the signs, there's no signs in English, and there's swastikas all over the streets.
Wow.
Yeah, because it means Buddhist vegetarianism. Every swastika you see on a Taiwanese street means we sell really good vegetarian food.
Wow.
Because that's what the original symbol was, a mandala symbol on the Buddha's forehead.
Wow.
But I'm like, oh my God, look at the swastikas and shit. What's going on? Why? And they're all red. And I was, it was weird. And I spent 3 days freaking out. And after 3 days, I completely gave up. And I was like, I'm not this guy. I'm not a traveler. I'm going to just sit here on the couch until my 250 runs out, and paying my thing. And I learned what cricket was because it was an Australian dude doing the same thing, sitting watching cricket. Still don't understand cricket.
Right.
Still don't understand.
But I did watch a lot of cricket with this dude until the phone rings. Lily, the woman who ran the house, she's, anybody want a job? And I was like, I want a job. So I went up, talked to this guy. Hello, you want to teach? And I was like, yes. Okay, come. I looked at Lily. I was like, what do I do? And she says, I don't know. What did he say? He said, he asked me if I want a job. What did you say? I said, yes. What did he do? He hung up. He said, okay, come. Where do I go? Is this a Chinese thing? Do you all know where to go when you teach? I mean, what's happening? The phone rings again. And he picks up. And she goes, it's for you. I was like, hello? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Forgot to tell you. Come to my school. And I was like, okay, how do I get there? Put Lily on the phone. I give it to Lily. She writes down something. She goes, here you go. Go there.
Holy
I was like,
moly.
where's there? She says, it's that bus stop. Take the 92. Now, buses, jam-packed with people.
Gosh.
It's just crazy. So I get on the bus. God, it's a long-ass story. But I go downstairs. I'm freaking out. The streets are packed. I get in the bus, and I'm like, okay, this set of things on a paper are where I have to stop. I couldn't read Chinese at the time. Like, what do I do? So I'm like tapping people on the shoulder and pointing at the paper going, and they're like, no. I'm like, okay, I think that means we're not there yet. Finally, at one point I tapped this woman on the shoulder and she goes, oh, very sorry. It was a go.
Oh, no.
You missed it.
It was a go. I love that.
It was a go. She's doing her best. She says, wait, takes me off the bus, takes me to the other side of the street, walks me up the street, waits for the next bus with me, gets on the bus with me, this woman, takes me back up 2 stops, right? Takes me out, walks me to the door of the VIP English school where the address is, reaches in her pocket, hands me like $2, which is bus fare, and says, I'm sorry, the transport system is difficult for you.
Oh my gosh.
And she gives me cash. I'm like,
what is happening?
And as I'm saying, no, I don't want this, she just runs off. At which point, you, teacher? Yeah, it's Mr. Chen, man. He comes out and he's like this 75-year-old intense Iron Man. You come. You're late. Come on. And he says, interview. And I said, oh, interview? Oh my God, I'm being interviewed. I sit down. You like kids? Yeah. Okay, let's go.
That was the interview.
I was like, that's the interview? He says, come on. Come on. And he stuffs me in a room. It's a room probably about this size. There's a lane in the middle of the desk. There's benches. 65 kids in the room.
Oh my God.
65 kids. That was a big class. There were as few as 40 in some of the classes. There's a Chinese teacher, a woman standing there, hands me a book. She says, read it. So I said, the quick brown fox jumped over the and I couldn't quite, it was kind of old and they said, and 64 kids. The quick brown fox jumped over the stream.
Oh my God.
They repeated after me, and I was like, and I read again. I read in the thing, and I was like, Humpty Dumpty it was all these classic things. Sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. 64 kids are copying me. I like Doritos. I like Doritos. And then they all look up because they know, finally they knew that wasn't written in their book. And they look at me, and I'm like, all right, okay, good. I know how to do this job now.
Oh my God.
And that was my first teaching job.
Holy crap.
Where you're just like, you just get them to repeat after you. And it was Mr. Chen, all black market money, man. He just, there you go, there's your money. Go, get out. Come back tomorrow. Very good job. Very good job. Very good job.
Gosh.
Don't be bad. Don't be bad. And he goes, and I can go on about Mr. Chen. I mean, so then I'm there for 6 months, and that's just the taste of it. The life, being an expatriate is awesome. There's a weird community of foreigners that are there. You're meeting all these people. You're learning things, and it's a wide variety. So not everybody is interested in culture and language. I was, so I did. You don't have to be. What do you want? What's your dream? You can live it there, and it makes it happen. I don't know. And then it goes on for this. So then I start teaching those things. I start studying, and I start doing other things. And then it turns into, okay, then I had a lot of money suddenly. I had more in 6 months, I had $5,000.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Because that was the first job. And that I went from making $5.15 an hour at the Y, $6.25 at the package company. I was making $25-$30 an hour.
Huh.
There you go.
And this
Now,
was
what
the
was
90s?
94.
Mr. Yen, you say?
Chen.
Was that actually like a school, or was that just his own thing? Or
Yeah. It's called a bushiban, or a cram school. Mm-hmm. It's an after-school program for extra English courses to prepare you to pass national tests.
And how did he have budget?
How did he have budget?
Or money?
Money or something. Well, it's super interesting. In Taiwan, there's different layers of people in the society. Now, the Mandarin speakers are most of the people that came over with Chiang Kai-shek at the end of World War II, because Chiang Kai-shek and his army was chased out of mainland China by Mao and his army. So they escaped mainland China and they fled to Taiwan, which isn't as weird as it seems, because that's what losing armies have done for hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah. They all go to Taiwan. That's where the pirate bases were. That's when, they just escaped to Taiwan with the idea that they're going back. We got a million people here. We got an army in Taipei. Taipei was built as a temporary city, which is why it's so haphazardly built, because they were going to leave at any minute. 60 years later, they're still thinking they're going to leave, but now we realize we're not. And our economy is actually getting really, really good. So they started doing all these things. Mr. Chen was one of the soldiers that came over at the end of World War II.
Wow.
And so he had massive military connections. All of his old crony buddies were in the government, so he could do whatever he wanted. He could get anything. It was great, because when you worked for Mr. Chen, you didn't have any visa problems.
Oh, right.
You just, he called a guy,
Called a guy.
And he sorted it out. But you cross him, and you're escorted out of the country.
Right.
So
right.
you can't cross him.
Right.
And but you can quit honorably. It's not an honor thing. It's just like, you can go, hey, listen to Chen, I'm moving on. Okay, thank you. But he makes it worth your while.
Yeah.
He'd show up at random moments and hand you $500.
Oh my God.
He'd walk in. He'd just walk in and go, oh, no, yo, good job, very good.
Wow.
Boom. And then you go to take it. You go, still working next week? I was like, yeah. Okay. Shh. Go buy noodles.
Go buy noodles.
Go buy noodles.
Go buy noodles. I was like, what? Are you serious, Mr. 10? You're a cartoon. And this guy, he always wore like a white shirt, black pants, had a tie, short hair, really cool looking dude. He looked actually a lot like Mr. Huft in a Chinese version.
A teacher of ours in high school.
Yeah, and he'd come out. So he ran this business, which was highly lucrative because he had connections to the government that created the test books. So he knew what all the tests were going to be. Yeah, so he just trained them to repeat what was going to be on the tests until they could get perfect scores, and everybody loved it. And the kids came and they went. There's all different age groups and different books and different categories, and he had it all laid out. And there were a bunch of his backpackers that worked for him.
So as I understood as it was happening, and I've repeated this multiple times when people asked me why the hell you went to Taiwan.
Right.
And it was like, and I obviously didn't tell the whole story, but basically what you did though was teach conversational English to these kids.
Yeah.
And so you read from a book. And so did that go on into talking to them and saying, this is how you say, I want a popsicle?
No, absolutely not. There's multiple levels of different things. This is pure old school Chinese teaching by rote. They're just memorizing phrases. Most of the kids have no idea what they're saying.
Oh, okay.
At that level. Now, some of them
I did with that comment, that smart ass comment. They knew they could read it and say it, but they didn't have a clue.
But they didn't know what they were saying. Now, the kids that were interested.
I love how this ties into that. That's great.
Yeah. They did learn, and this wasn't the only way. I also taught private lessons where you just go to someone's house and you teach their kids or you teach them. I had one woman who wanted to do a Three's Company program. And I was like, what's that mean?
Wait a minute.
Wait, am I teaching? Or what was going on? So I'd show up and we'd sit on the couch and she'd have a little workbook and she would play episodes of Three's Company.
The TV show.
The TV show, which were subtitled. And then they had been rearranged and they would pause at different moments. And then you would do the workbook and copy it. And then she would ask about this situation and that situation, all based on Three's Company.
Wow.
I taught her for like 4 months. It was amazing.
We actually had it's a married couple. They call themselves the Creek Rocks, and they play music. They were invited to do like a 1 week long, I wouldn't call it a residency, but I mean, it was like this kind of exchange where they went there and some folks it was Japan.
It was the Japanese sister city to Springfield. So they sent musicians over here from there and these musicians over there.
Yeah.
Like a
Kind of like the old school
student exchange student thing.
Exchange
They exchange musicians.
Similar thing,
Sorta.
except music. So they were kind of talking about how, most of the stuff they played, which a lot of it was their original music. Of course, the crowd just kind of sat and blank stare type of thing.
Here.
Then they did a John Denver song
In Japan.
and the whole crowd went ape shit and they sang every single word and
Country roads, take me home.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
nobody
perfect.
had accents. They sang it exactly like John Denver. And then they went on from there and nobody got most of any of their music from there on out. Like, which sounds similar to that, like just memorizing that
is,
English thing. I don't know.
I don't know. But it's super weird because I think it might be true. I was 3 months in the road in mainland China. I was at the top of the big Buddha. It's almost one of the seven wonders. It's a 90-meter tall Buddha carved into the side of a mountain. I was sick. I'd been bad. Got up to the top of the thing, got off the train. I'd been on this train for 17 hours, got off the thing, walked down, and this Chinese guy walks up and goes, "Hello, American friend." I said, "Hello." He says, "Are you lonely?" And I was like, "Why?" "No, I'm okay." "Because you're away from your home." And I was like, "Yes, I've been away from my home for a long time." And then he got this dreamy look in his eyes and he goes, "Country roads, take me home to the pledge. I'll be wrong." I'm exaggerating a little, and I can't do it the way this guy did because he was Chinese and that sounded a little bit Japanese when I did it. But he serenaded me the whole song.
Oh my God.
In this train station, just standing there in the classic Chinese. He's got a black jacket and white shirt, and he's kind of dirty, and he just sang the whole song for me. And I was like,
gosh.
He's like, "Enjoy the Buddha," and I was like, "Thank you, dude." I was like, "Whoa." What? I don't even know what that was, but it was Country Roads.
Yeah.
Same freaking song.
Same freaking song. I mean, it was like, I was like leagues out there. I had been on the road for ages. I was exhausted and I was like wanting to go home. And this guy sang Country Roads. Go home, Brent. Go home. It was like Carl Jung dropping me some bombs. It was like, go, dude.
Home.
Archetypal need for home. Go. You know, it was crazy. But it's country roads. I don't know what that's about or why
That
it
is
is.
wild.
That's so funny. One of the my favorite live CDs from Journey was a show they did in Japan.
Okay.
And the audience was singing every single word and cheering for every single song. And a lot of artists tour Europe and everywhere and blah, blah, blah. But back in the day, so many artists were going to Japan and China, specifically Japan. And all these American artists would go there, and all these live albums were done there. And it was like this enthusiasm from these people singing these songs with the bands completely in English. It's like, I don't know if they knew what they were saying, but they knew how to sing it.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the person. This girl Ray that was a waitress in Taiwan, she was 17, had perfect English because she loved it. And she practiced all the time, worked in the foreigner restaurant where all the foreigners hung out on the weekend because it was a time to practice and earn money at the same time.
Wow.
You know, so I mean, it all depends on who they are and what they want. You know?
For sure.
So you think that experience is what kind of solidified that? Did you teach from then on? I mean, have you been a teacher since then?
Have I been a teacher since then? Yes. Well, then, almost.
Or I mean, ever since
I went
then.
back. I mean, because I wanted. It was hard. I got what I wanted in a way. When I left, I wanted adventure, and I knew I needed discipline, because I was craving experiences, and I couldn't achieve them because I was lazy. You know, and I thought, and I was reading. This is so convoluted. I hope this is interesting to anyone. I was reading the I Ching. It's the book by Lao Tzu. It's the primary text of Taoism. And I've been reading this for a long time. I'd read Alan Watts' The Way of Zen in high school, and it goes on and on. It builds to this. I'd read and read and read and read. But the thing that was interesting is you read translations from French, and 3 translations will be similar. You read 2 or 3 translations of a Russian novel, and they're pretty similar, but they could be a little more variance. You read 3 or 4 translations. I read 5 of the Tao Te Ching, and they're radically different. Like almost like the message is different. I was like, this can't be possible. There is a ground text. And I was like, why is it that this one language translates so many different ways, which might all be true, and yet these other languages are more accurate, more aligned? I became very curious about that. So I thought, hey, that matches my need for discipline. What's the hardest thing I could possibly do? Learn Chinese.
Learn Chinese.
If I could learn Chinese, then I'd have a definite credential saying you now have maybe not all, but you have enough discipline.
Right.
If I can do that, mixed with the idea of adventure.
Right.
And you're having adventures at the same time, so it's all good. So that's I left then. Then I taught for that while, went back. I got lonely, country roads, go home. I go back to the States, and then I was in the States for 2.5 years. And then I said, okay, now I've got a bit of discipline. Now let's be an actor. Now let's do theater. So I went hardcore. I spent all the money I earned in that time. Spent all the money going to auditions, preparing myself for these things. Fail. I got a job in Blue Eye, Missouri, where we were going to start a Renaissance festival, like a permanent site, from a guy I knew I used to work with in Kansas City. He hired me. I was in a theater troupe acting. I was going to be the Shakespearean actor. There was 6 of us. Great, that worked. That failed. The buyers pulled out, and the whole thing turned to crap. You know, none of us got paychecks. You know, but we liked each other, and we thought we'll go. So one of them had a sister who lived in Portland, Oregon. So we all moved to Portland, Oregon. All of us got in the cars, drove to Portland, Oregon, started a theater company there.
I just want to reiterate, you did act in the Bonner Springs Renaissance Fair for a few years.
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
I did that every year all through college.
Different parts here and there.
Different parts. I was Little John in the Little John and Robin Hood
It was
show.
fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. Stage fighting is the best. If
It
you
was
ever get a
wonderful.
chance to fake fight in front of other people, do it. It's just the best.
Yeah. That was great.
Ended up in Portland, did that for a year, ran a theater company, directed shows at night, fail. The shows were great. Everything was fine. it just didn't work. Our group broke up mostly because we decided also, wouldn't it be great if we just lived all in the same house together?
Oh boy.
It was the worst decision ever. We probably would have been okay had we not been living with each other. And so the six of us broke up. I had a girlfriend at the time. Then I went camping for 6 months. I filled up my truck with her and some stuff, drove down through San Francisco. We camped in every state west of the Mississippi.
Damn.
In 6 months.
Uh-huh.
You know, her goal was Louisiana. My goal was to leave Portland. So we camped and camped and camped. Also, my goal actually was to answer the question. I'll know whether this is the girl I want to be with after I live in a tent with her for 6 months.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. And while she was lovely and fantastic,
it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. So
yes.
she was a great girl.
We have a couple questions.
Go.
So Brian.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Brian Betancourt is asking, did you or do you need an English degree to do what you did?
Oh, no. You don't need an English degree. You need to speak native English. And it's I don't know. I'd have to look up the situation today, but really what it is there were Germans teaching English, you know,
but they spoke it well.
No,
not
at all. You need to be a foreigner. You need to be someone who looks like you are a Westerner, because at that time, all foreigners were Englishmen or Americans.
Oh, wow.
You know, so you need to be present and available to work, especially if you're working for Mr. Chen.
Okay.
And, you don't need an English degree, but having a college degree will get you a better job.
Okay.
So
within Mr. Chen's realm, or just in general?
In general, once you move out of the Mr. Chen level.
Gotcha.
Because Mr. Chen is great, and you get side benefits, but it doesn't pay as well, and the work isn't as regular. I had to work weekends.
But it was a wonderful starting thing out of nowhere.
Amazing way to start.
Yeah.
Best training ever, because it defines everything I don't want to do as a teacher. You know. So then you end up, you get in the scene and you learn how to get the jobs. You can teach privately. You can do all these different things that way. Now, that's Taiwan. Korea is different. It has a different set of things. Japan, you got to have a degree.
Okay.
And because Japan, it's been happening in Japan longer, so they're more demanding. So different countries are going to have different demands.
Now, is that specifically an English degree or a teaching degree?
Teaching? No. In Japan, it's going to be a teaching degree.
Okay.
You know, having an English degree isn't necessarily what they want. Mm-hmm. What they want is someone who's
learned how to teach.
Learn how to teach, and depending on the situation, it's really fluid. It depends on your setting and where you are and how it goes. I can speak most clearly about Taiwan. There's different levels. It's what lifestyle do you want? Okay, if you're a backpacker who wants to smoke weed in India, then you take 2 months, work in Taiwan, and go back to India. Live for 6 months on that money. You can do that. You can work for Mr. Chen, go work for 2 months, go back and do your thing. You're a traveler. You're not really looking to build a career.
Gotcha.
My goal was to learn Chinese and do martial arts.
So
I just got a job that was in the middle. I didn't need a teaching degree, but it funded my martial art and Chinese study habit, you know, and then I did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but then as I did that more and more and more, I got better and better at it. I was surrounded by other people who took their lives seriously, even if that was their side gig. We were all doing martial arts together and studying together, but we also had jobs together. And so we built this sort of really special community around each other, you know, and we ended up teaching. And then by the time I moved to Sweden, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I studied for 1.5 years, learned Swedish, and then I was like, okay, I guess I'll teach.
Because at some point in Taiwan, you actually taught kindergarten class, or was it still the same English thing?
No, then I moved into after the first year, Taiwan, went back to state, then I went back to Taiwan, then I lived there.
We just came from Portland a second ago.
Right, yeah.
Gotcha.
After Portland is done and I moved to Kansas City, I go back to some old jobs. I do that for a while. Then I go to Taiwan, then I'm there for 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
Then I stay there for 6 years, teaching, and you get good at what you do.
Yeah.
And if one of those things you do happens to be teaching, you get better and better at it.
Right.
I found that I liked it.
And you have this yearning to be better, do better.
Yeah.
And so therefore you did.
And to do better, getting given the responsibility for a classroom of kids is overwhelming.
It's huge. Yeah.
It's overwhelming. And so there were the first 6 months of the real job I had at Happy Marion Children's World.
Happy Marion.
Yeah, it was great. Happy Marion. It was a great place. The first 6 months of that, every single day, I'd get on my motorcycle, I'd drive to this breakfast place, and I'd go, I'm not going in. I can't do this. This isn't what I want to do.
Really?
You know, I had various things. I would be eating. I'd eat an egg sandwich, and then I go, all right, I'll do one more day. And I'd go and I would teach, and it would be hard, and I would freak out and not know what to do. Also, by the way, there's a big window in the classroom, and sometimes parents just watch you teach all day. They just, and they're banging on the window, waving at their little son. I'm like, what the hell? So it
Just butting in real quick. When I was doing voice lessons, that's one kid at a time with one tiny little subject. And I still had those moments every week, whether it was here in the studio or when I taught over at the store. It was like, am I doing any good?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm doing any good for these kids. And then I would hear these crazy things that they would say, like, oh my God, I don't want to get into all that, but my child is better because of you. And all I was doing was teaching voice, but I wasn't. I was listening to these kids talk. I was talking to them about my experiences and stuff. And so I would head to the lesson kind of like, why am I bothering? And then I'd leave inspired and just feeling really wonderful that I was doing that.
Yeah.
Is it similar to those feelings you were having when you were like, oh, one more day?
No, because I was too inexperienced at that time.
Okay.
At that time, I was just literally in pain.
I gotcha.
I was literally suffering, thinking, this sucks. I hate this. It's too much effort. I'm too scared of the kids. You know, I mean, it was just so painful every single day.
Gotcha.
And it's not till later that what you're talking about kicks in. When I feel confident enough, like 2 years later, I bought a set of curtains and hung it over the window. Fuck the parents. Go away. I'm working.
I'm
in
actually
here.
teaching these children.
You know,
so
I am not a monkey in a zoo right now.
Yeah.
You don't get to watch. And the principal was like, why do you do that? I said, because it freaks the kids out when the parents are watching. It's distracting. And I can't get them to focus. Yeah. They're performing for their moms and dads. So I had to get confidence before I could feel any sense of I'm doing any good. And then it wasn't 2 years later. That's what I often say. Teaching is a job where you never know the outcome. You never know if you did a good job or not, because the effects you have aren't really seen until they're 5 years later, or 10 years later, or they're
50.
or 50.
We still have moments of our teachers, certain moments.
Yeah.
We're 50 something, and then we can pick you 5 things right now. If you wanted to rattle it off, I'd have 5 issues with 5 different teachers that were just amazing.
Exactly, and that becomes my go-to mantra when I'm feeling like shit.
Gotcha.
I want to be that teacher who is remembered as, oh yeah, that guy who said that thing that day.
Yeah.
And they don't remember really what that guy was or what the thing was, but they remember it was important, and they tell other people a story about something I might have said or done one day that I didn't remember saying or doing.
Right.
But I always am in the zone of trying to say and do the right thing every single moment.
Yeah.
Even though I fail 50 times a day.
Sure.
I'm fine with that as long as I get that one thing that maybe that one kid remembers. And most of the kids won't. Or do they? How am I ever going to know?
Right.
They're going to grow up and move on. And maybe I've been at one school now long enough to where, like, I'll mention Dalhan, who's from Turkey, who came to the kindergarten class, and everybody thought he was autistic. And I said, I think he just has thick glasses.
Oh my God.
You know, and all the, oh my God, I think he's on the spectrum. I'm like, why is everyone who doesn't conform to the norm on the spectrum? I'm sorry. What is going on? Something's going on with Dalhan. I don't know what it is. And then I find out later what it is. His parents come in and they go, please understand, you know, you're not from our country. We're Turkish. And we don't live in Turkey. And we don't, my job is here. My wife's job is here. We've gotten different jobs here. We love it here. It's great here. But if this was Turkey, our son would be picked up and kissed and hugged and held by strangers every day, because that's what Turkish society is like. Everyone just sees children, they're like, hey. It's a much more, and he didn't use the word gregarious, but it's he says, we miss this and we think our Daohan misses this. Could you please hold our son?
Wow.
And I was like, okay. If
Okay.
that's the solution
If
to
that's
why
okay.
he keeps wandering around the room and all these things that make him look on the spectrum to everyone, I was like, I'll give it a go. So next day in circle, I was like, Daohan, come here. And he turned his head.
Was this kindergarten?
Yeah, this is kindergarten. They're 5 years old.
Okay.
And I go, Daohan, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. And he was 5. He already spoke pretty good English. And he says, do you want to sit on my lap? And wow, he fell on me. He was waiting. I actually asked him, and it was all conscious, which is very strange and unusual. He sat on my lap. I hugged him. He held me. And I'm in the middle of like story time.
Yeah.
You know, and then he just sat there holding me, put his nose in my neck, and I held him for a while. I told the story to the rest of the class, and he goes on. And then our relationship changed, and he would hold my hand. He appreciated my hand on his shoulder, you know, all at his invitation, of course, you know. And then he moves on. So then years later, I'm teaching in the upper school, and I watch him graduate middle school.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, he's in 10th grade. Years after that, he goes to the high school nearby. Years after that, I'm sitting on the bus going to work one morning, and this man sits next to me. He goes, hi, Brent, do you remember me? And I was like, and I look at him, he's got the same fucking glasses. I was like, Daohan, you do remember me? I said, of course I do. He said, I was like, what are you doing, man? He says, I'm in the military. I'm like, what? Why are you? He said, I'm in the Swedish military. And I was like, why? He says, well, there's two reasons. If I don't do Swedish military service, I have to do Turkish military service.
Pick one.
I'd rather pick Swedish military service.
Too Swedish.
The other one is I can see that everyone around me we're all getting weak. And I needed something that would make me different. And this is different. I don't know if it's good or right, but I'm trying it out. I'm getting a lot of, I'm a field medic. He says, I'm getting training in medicine because I'm going to be a doctor. You know, I've been accepted to medical school in Sweden. And he says, you know, and then he says, remember that story you told about the skeleton head? And I was like, yes, I remember that story. He says, yeah, I remember that too. I got to go.
Holy shit.
And he gets off the bus. I'm like, later, Daohan. There it is. So he's that kid who remembers that thing that one day. And I made a difference for one kid.
And there are probably more.
And there are probably more. So I have to assume there's more. On my dark days, I assume there's no one. And fuck it all. I'm going to sell insurance. You know, I mean, oh my God. That is a joke. It is only a joke. It was not meant to upset myself or anyone else around me. But it's like, yeah, there's that thing there. But that's not something you can rely on to bolster yourself. You have to have a different kind of inner fortitude if you want to do that.
Two things.
Yeah.
Got one more comment that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there's two. But
for those of you just joining us, we're sitting here with Brent Puglisi, who is Tara's brother.
My brother.
Yay.
Julia, who is our resident Kansas Cityan, she's like, KC Renfest is our home fair, and she spells it fair. I might not have seen you, but Steven did for sure, her husband.
Okay.
So he might have even performed back in the
Really?
day. It's quite possible.
Like 80, 88, 89,
Was
90?
it 88, 89, 90, 91?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. They might be a little bit younger than us, but yeah, so that's cool. And she is she's also our resident costumer, like every holiday. And he wears this wonderful kilt sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, they
go all
dress up for whatever the event is. They have outfits and costumes. She has a magic closet, she says.
man.
So anyway, it would be interesting to all meet
Costumes
sometime.
were less than amazing.
And then Brian Betancourt says, Lisa and I have discussed living in Europe, mainly Portugal and Spain for a few years, and being able to travel in the rest of Europe. And then he says, boy, you must have been in a dark place to sell insurance. So then the second thing, that was the comment thing. So I know we ended up, you said that's when I moved to Sweden, but we really haven't gotten past when you moved to Sweden, like in the history of this question that he asked
Right.
a little bit ago. So all the school you taught in Taiwan, then you just went to Sweden. So we don't have to get into the reasons why you went there, but when you went there, you said you studied for a while and then you got this job. Like how did getting the job happen?
How did getting the job happen? Once again, traveling, I used to say the reason I kept traveling was because you could get in a zone in your mind where you could feel that you were sitting in God's hand and he's steering you around, telling you where to go. Now, given that I don't believe in God, that's a weird analogy, but that's what you're steered. You know what the right thing is. You just know this. Or you're awake and you can read the road signs. Or if you're not reading the road signs enough, you get them dumped on you, right? And this happens over and over and over in my life. I'm coming out of the dojo in Sweden. One of the reasons I went to Sweden was also I married a Swede. We moved there together. The city she wanted to live in also had a world famous Aikido teacher.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, I'm in. I've been doing Aikido for 5 years. I'm ready to go. And then I had to go to Sweden and relearn everything because it was a different style. And it was good for me. It was healthy, And so I'm doing that. I'm training. I come out one summer. I step out of the dojo. I'm walking home. And Sumana walks up. She was one of my classmates in my Swedish class who had dropped out after Christmas. Or just after, I don't know, something like that. But I saw her and all these things, and she's like, "Hey, Brent, how you doing?" We were pretty good friends, and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "I don't know. I'm taking a Swedish literature class now because I can get a little bit of money and go to school and live, but I don't really know. I'm doing Aikido a lot and all this stuff." She says, "Oh, do you want to teach?" I was like, "Not really." Not really, but yeah, I need a job. And she says, well, my son goes to this international school, and I know for a fact that they need subs. Their kindergarten teacher's not doing well. And I was like, okay. So just as I was needing a job, this woman who I hadn't seen in 6 months, who I didn't know where she lived or why, just happens to be walking past on the street corner out in front of the dojo, just as I'm walking out. At that right moment, catches me, tells me there's a job. I go in the next day. Yes, you need a sub. It was a little bit more of a formal procedure than Mr. Chen had. But I did end up getting this job. And this woman who wasn't doing so well funded me for many months. That was November-ish. By March, I had subbed in every single class. And the kindergarten teacher quit. So they're like, we need you to finish this year.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay.
As the full-time
kindergarten teacher. And it was a mess. So I had to refix everything, and I just went in and I dug in and I remember the day when I went, oh, I just need to give myself to this. I need to not do this, and I was like, no, those kids need help. Oh, and I jumped up and I just gave more energy. And as soon as I did that, I became more willing, more relaxed and everything. And then fate takes over laziness. I'm still a teacher because I'm lazy, and it was a good job and good enough. And, I didn't have a very good salary at the time, but it was better than looking.
And now you're pretty big stuff over there.
Yeah, but since then...
Yes, I'm famous in Sweden.
Yes.
No, that's not
I've seen
true.
some of your internet conferences. You're on the internet talking to people about stuff.
You're the sweetest teacher on the Muppets.
That's right. Right on the board.
I'd be the American teacher in Sweden.
And you would sound like this.
I am an international presenter.
You'd be like, I'm the American teacher in Sweden. So a couple of things. That's freaking cool. So that got us to Sweden. I just want to, some people who just came out of the blue.
Shell wants to know, how long did it take you to teach Tara to tie her shoes?
How long is that song?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. She was talented.
I was like that at 3 years old, 4 years old. That is a true story. You may not remember that, but it was a true story for me. And it wasn't just one episode. It was like over and over.
Over and over, of course.
I don't know. At 3 or so, I remember you actually tying my shoes for me a few times. And then at some point, I was like, I'm a grown-up kid. I want to do it myself. And I watched you do it. There was literally a moment that even at 3 years old, I remember it crystal clear. And we if we tied our shoes right now, I bet we would do it opposite.
Opposite still.
Because I did it mirror image or something.
What I remember about is that I had, when I was 3, I had these buckle shoes, and they buckled, and it delayed my shoe tying development.
See, right?
And I remember being a pissed off 5-year-old that I had learned I was a delayed onset shoe tire, and I was like, fucking Tara's not getting delayed onset shoe tire. So I was like, I remember having that feeling, and then going, no, fuck that, don't. And I was like, you're not wearing buckle shoes,
right? No,
there were these leather shoes that had this click on. It was like a buckle that clicked.
Yeah, it grabbed the thing, and
it was like Velcro before they invented Velcro.
Before Velcro,
but I think they already had Velcro at that time.
But they didn't have Velcro shoes.
But
yet.
I didn't have Velcro shoes.
Right,
I had
totally.
those fucking buckle shoes.
Those
my
are
gosh.
fancy shoes.
And I see you're getting ready to do something, but I'm going to jump right in here real quick. This is Julia again, our Kansas City girl. Stephen was attending at that point for sure. We were not performers yet, but all the performers know us so well that we are practically in the show as much as we interact with them.
Read that again. I spaced out.
Stephen was attending at that point back in the late 80s, early 90s. We were not performers yet, but we are not performers yet, but all the performers know us so well that we are practically in the show as much as we interact with them. And they always dress the part.
Okay.
As attendees, they dress Renaissance.
Okay, gotcha.
So they totally look like they're there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you'd blend in.
You would love this couple. They're fantastic. And then Greg and Ange say, Brent, we really love the stories.
Aw, thanks.
So are we going to turn a page and do something a little bit different, or do you have more questions? And if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and feel free.
We can still go through a lot of stuff. In case you're feeling like it's getting too thick, we can loosen it up a little bit.
Loosen it up.
I had a quick question before I was going to do this idea.
Okay.
Is how much? This is an honest question. It's going to sound like comedy, but I'm actually being totally serious. Where do you place the importance? Well, influence, whatever word you want to use, pick one, of Dungeons and Dragons in your life.
Oh my God.
Like, because I think and there's a lot of people that are younger that are going to listen to this. They're like, what are you guys even talking about?
Yeah.
I think. But it was a big deal back when we were in this era of whatever it was, 1980 to 1990. It seemed like it was real hot then.
Yeah.
And it was like I mean, we don't need to get into explaining the game or anything like that, but and you've mentioned it a few times. Do you think there's any significance to the Dungeons and Dragons involvement to just how you thought about anything about life moving forward?
1,000%. I don't know where to begin. It's a novel. I mean, yes, formative. Having Dungeons and Dragons was essential to my development as a human being. And I'll give you 2 examples. Number 1, every Thursday in high school, we had a Dungeons and Dragons game. It was the healthy social environment. Plus witchcraft and Satan.
Yeah.
No, we didn't do Satan or witchcraft.
Right.
Unless
Of
we
course
were
not.
kicking his ass with swords and magic spells.
Right.
I mean, but it was.
It's a game.
That's what was ironic about me getting so much shit for doing Dungeons and Dragons. Other friends are off drinking by the river.
Yeah.
Right.
We're in a room rolling dice.
Right.
Yeah.
And cheering because we just conquered a troll or whatever. I mean, it was so. That was my social group. It was how I learned to be so better at being social.
Yeah.
It's where I learned to lead. It's where I learned to follow. It's all that stuff. The second example I would give in terms of how effect it's had on one's life and everything is the alignment system in Dungeons and Dragons. Now, if you're not familiar with what that is, it means every character chooses a moral compass. So, and it ranges in all different things. You can be lawful good, which is sometimes by some people, depending on their alignment in their real life, it's seen as the most good. But lawful good, it means you're good because you have a set of rules or a code that you follow. And the rules tell you what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
Now, with that is chaotic good, which means you were just born that way.
Yeah.
You're just good because being good feels right to you, and the way you know which one you are is which one you think is more correct. I know I'm chaotic good because I feel that that's good. Now there's also lawful evil, and there's also chaotic evil. There's neutral evil, neutral good, and true neutral. There's all these different, and the picture in the book is in the star pattern like this. So you can place characters, beasts, creatures on this. And when you give yourself a simplistic structure like that, as a child, it gives you a frame to see the world.
Yeah.
And then as you grow up, you realize where it's flawed and where it's not nuanced enough. But you also realize, yeah, it's kind of true. And for me personally, like, for example, what's the difference between lawful good and lawful evil?
Right.
The rules.
Right.
Lawful evil people do not think they're evil. They think they're good.
Yeah.
They're just following a different set of rules than the lawful good people, which was my argument to say that neither of them were good. You can't be good if you only follow rules.
Right. Right.
You can only be good if you follow the truth. And then we get into the waters of what is truth.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what I'm saying is Dungeons and Dragons provided that avenue and structure of thought for me to then have grown-up discussions later.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
In conjunction with providing me a social venue, in conjunction with being the springboard off of which I left for Taiwan because I realized I grew up.
Yeah.
And it's a game. And it's a game I still love. In Taiwan, I taught an entire year of fourth grade with only Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh my gosh.
If I can digress on this one a little bit,
Yeah.
I was told after I taught those little kids, I taught the same group of little kids for 3 years, and then they graduated, and I taught the same group for 2 more years after that. So I taught the same kids for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Incredibly unusual in a career, I think. But it was by the end, it was only half of them. But then after that, I wanted more money, so I took another class. And but Brent, you're really good with the kids. Could you teach that group? And it was 9 kids in this room, and I was like, yeah, I'll teach it. Second day, I'm in there. One of the boys is on a table with a chair held over his head, and he's swinging the chair, trying to smash the other kids in the room. And the room was maybe this big, the size of this side of the room. And I was like, put it down, and I'm dodging and weaving. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting some good practice in here, getting out of the way, And I get the chair and I get him on down, and okay, that's fine. Day 3, he's in the corner and he's got a pencil, right? He's got a pencil in his hand, and I'm like, I was fed up. I was like, give me the pencil. Now, if you look at my palm,
Yeah.
you see the little tiny gray tattoo in my palm?
Yeah.
That's where he stuck the pencil in my hand. Yeah. And he stuck it in my hand. And it hurt so bad. And I just looked up at him and I said, look what you did. That hurts. Come down off the table, please.
Wow.
And he sits down. I said, pull it out. And he looks at me and I was like, you put it there. You got to take it out. And he took it out. And of course, a piece of it's still stuck in my hand now. And I was like, okay, now we're going to learn English. And that's also the day I knew that I can't teach the normal curriculum. I'm going to do a Dead Poet Society on this shit and throw away the book.
Amen.
Except this was like, was this before Dead Poets? And was I a genius? Or I don't know. Of course I was. And
You were the inspiration
I was
for
the
Dead
inspiration.
Poets
You were
Society.
the inspiration.
me in a room getting a fucking pencil in my hand. So then I was like, I went to the boss and I said, it's not going to work. Either you let me teach a different way and give me a different room because that one's too small, or I can't do that class anymore. Oh, no, you're the only one that can do that class. Okay, you try. I said, no, I'm not going to try. I'm just going to do whatever I want for the next 3 months. And if it doesn't work in 3 months, I'll give up. And you won't have to tell me to change. So I threw it all away. Had these 9 kids, 5 boys and 4 girls, nasty to each other, mean, couldn't speak English, nothing. And I just introduced, I literally said, guys, this book is terrible. Threw away the book, just put it off to the side. I didn't literally throw it in a trash can. I wish I could have, but I didn't. I want to rip it up.
It would have been good in the movie.
It would have been great in the movie, but it wasn't in real life. It
It
didn't work.
will be in the movie.
It will be
Yeah.
in the movie.
I threw it off to the side and I said, okay, we're just going to play games. And they're like, yay. And they weren't, I was like, okay, here it is. Here's what's going to be. And then slowly I just lay the game on them. I just show them Dungeons and Dragons. I had a set of dice. I brought it to school, and then just, why did Brent bring D&D dice to Taiwan? Don't know why, but they were there. I had them, and I had the 20.
This was in Taiwan?
This was in Taiwan, yeah. I mean, because they're non-native. I'm teaching them English.
Gotcha.
And they
Yeah.
can't speak English, and they won't speak to each other, and they don't like to talk to one another, and they're 9 and 10 years old, and so I just did this. I went to a store. I bought these chocolate gold bars. I said, okay, this is treasure. This is this, and they're learning words like dice, roll, random. And they're, because the whole game of Dungeons and Dragons is played by communicating with one another.
Yeah.
You don't know what the story is unless you're telling each other the story. What do you do? I run. Where do you run? I run, go. No, you run, go. You go where? Where do you go? How? Oh, you go there by running. And there's all the language and everything. And within 3 months, these kids were showing up early. They were coming with crafted character sheets. They were asking me how to spell stuff so they got it right. They were asking me I want to learn a new spell. And I said, well, here's the spell. But I can't read it. It's not my problem.
Right.
Not my problem.
Right.
If you tell me how to use it correctly and you want to use it in the game, learn the spell. And they had to learn all this. That's D&D. D&D respects kids because it wasn't really written for kids. It was adults geeking out.
Yeah.
And it's based on real myth, and it's written in complex language. I myself learned how to footnote by reading D&D books.
Yeah.
I all these complicated things. And then within 6 months, 2 things happened. All the kids learned English. And the poor violent boy, who was violent for very specific family reasons that are quite horrible to go into, he got removed from the class because I reached him. And the families started to see that he was turning.
Oh my!
And the family couldn't deal.
Oh,
So they just moved him out of the class. Heartbreaking. Also made the class better because he was no longer disturbing. By the way, his behavior went to 0 as soon as he invested in the game. The day he earned a gold chocolate, I knew I had him. The day he gave a gold chocolate to someone else so they wouldn't die in the game so they could buy a healing potion was the day I knew he was turning better. He was selflessly helping another person. There was no reason for him to do it other than they were a group working together. And there he was. And I was like, yes, dude. Yes, dude. Yes. And then one day he just stopped showing up.
Oh, that's awful.
I know. It was awful. It was awful.
That is awful.
So yes, D&D has been a huge effect in my life. I am right now running a D&D club on Fridays.
Oh, cool.
And it's been very difficult, this D&D club, because they don't do it the way I want to do it, And my friend Magnus was like, man, it's going to be tough. So I let this girl run it, and it was chaotic, and it was weird. And then the next time I was like, I'm just going to run one. And all I did was run it and let it be, but it gave them the structure. And then she could take on the structure. Went back and forth like this a few times. It was very stressful for me because I was like, I'm busy, things are happening. She comes prepared one day. I was super busy, so I was away, gave her the space. And we come back in. The most eclectic, strange, varied group of kids are in this room. This one girl who, they always wear a hood.
Okay.
They always are covered. They are always frowning. I walk in, and they're open and smiling, and the hood is off, and they're engaged with the game. They're in like 9th grade. This other kid, he's in 7th grade. My other girl that runs it, I shouldn't say her name, sorry. She's in 8th grade. And they're just and they're just not. How are these kids together? And they're like, and they rage and they finish the game, and here we come back to the mobile phone question. What do they do after the game's done? I'm watching with a couple of my colleagues, my friends who show up to support me in that, and they go, oh yeah, that was awesome, we got it. You did. Oh, do you do Discord or what? Do you? Their phones come out. They're trading information, and
Wow.
It was so moving to see them wanting to make connections with one another, even though they're in different. Normally, they wouldn't speak to one another.
Yeah.
But here they are making these connections, doing this through devices, through the internet, through social media apps, when applied in the correct direction, to connect people who feel alone most of the time and who wear a hood and hide themselves in the hallways. They have found a place where they no longer need to hide, and they can be open that way. And how do I know that I saw the right thing? Because I look at my colleague and she's crying. And we're like, God, that's a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful moment.
Heck
It just happened. It's small. It's, they don't, and they go their way, and it was amazing. It was amazing. So.
No wonder the church hates Dungeons and Dragons so much.
It reaches the soul, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Better than they could.
Couple comments, and then bring out your idea. And we'll move.
I don't care about that.
I think it's a fun idea. And so Julia says, "Good Lord, he does D&D too. How are he and Steven not best friends?" And she she asked in comments while you were telling a story.
It'd be funny if we find out Steven and him are actually best friends. He just
and he's
doesn't know
like,
who
"Oh,
we're
that's
talking about."
Stephen Cobb. His name is Stephen Cobb. Stephen Cobb.
I don't know.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be the first time that I met a stranger that I already knew.
Right.
Yeah,
it's quite possible.
That has actually happened once before, and so that would
Cindy
be
Lucas, thank you. She says, such great stories, great show.
Oh, wow.
And Julia is saying here, she asked earlier while you were telling a story what martial art you practice. And I said Aikido, and there's others probably, but that's the main one. Yeah. And she said, and I can't read these. Can you read that comment from there?
Shorin Ryu and Ryukyu Kempo. I mean,
and he did some Aikido in his college.
Ryukyu Kempo. Kempo's like karate. It's like a karate style, but it's Kempo. But I did a little bit of that too. Shorin Ryu. I don't know that particular style. And Aikido. Yeah, I do Iwama style Aikido. It's a specific kind of Aikido from a town in.
Well, we'll bring up his picture after we're done here, and we'll see. You might go, oh hell yeah, I know that guy. He was like blah blah blah, blah blah blah. So did you have any more things that you would love to express? Do you have any more questions, or do you want to do something fun? This might turn into another freaking hour, this thing right here.
Well, I know.
Which I love. I'm having a great time.
This is just backup, so whatever.
I'm having a great fucking time. Okay, so before we do that, then I'll butt in.
Okay.
Even though I asked. There is a story that is famous. There are several famous stories.
Okay,
Several famous stories that you've told over the years, and I'm not sure when this was, but I'm pretty sure it was in college in Kansas City. The Circle K story.
Oh my God.
Or one of the Circle K stories. But this one involves an ice cream.
Yeah, the ice cream. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I know the one you're talking about. And I remember I remember telling it, what was it, the hotel bar in Clinton?
I think so.
I don't know, but I remember, yeah. You want me to tell that story?
I would love it.
Oh my God.
Have you heard this story?
I might have.
Okay. This is coming out of the randomness.
Yes.
My dear friend Joan said her favorite incarnation of me was as a clerk at Circle K. And I was like, I'm not sure that's good, but she likes it, so I like her, so that's good. But I worked at Circle K for a while. Buddy of mine was the assistant manager, and none of us had jobs because that's what you do when you have a theater degree. And
well, that was a job. You were a clerk at the Circle K.
None of us had jobs we wanted.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. You didn't have a career.
But we were on a comedy troupe together.
That's true. There's improv comedy we didn't talk about.
Amazing. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so at this point, I'm working the night shift, so I'm working 11 to 8 or something like that.
11 p to 8 a.
Yeah. It was bad, but also good.
Right.
It was also.
This is Kansas City proper too, right?
Yeah. So, okay, wait. I'm not telling this. I'm not telling the hold up story. Okay, so it's 11 o'clock, and I'm going.
Oh, yeah, there was a hold up too.
Yeah, there was a hold up too. But
that was awesome.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was.
This one's more peculiar.
This one's more peculiar. So, part of the night guy's job is to clean the floors because no one's there.
Yes.
You can clean the floors. So I'm slinging the mop around. I'm mopping away, and I'm like, man, if this was, imagine, I was doing this like mind shift thing, like reframing, like, okay, how would I mop the floor if this was my store?
Nice, yeah.
And I was like, this, I'd mop it like this, and I was mopping the floor, and I realized if you mop it as if it's your own store, you get more enjoyment out of it. And I was like messing with my head because I had nothing else to do, right? So I'm like, and then I was like, yeah, but I'm actually mopping some other fucking dude's store, so I hate this,
Right.
So I'm cleaning, I'm gonna do stuff, and I'm cleaning doors. So I go over to the doors, which in the Circle K at the time is a 24-hour shop. Mm-hmm. I realized as I was cleaning the door, there's no lock. The doors have no locks on them. There's no latch because it hasn't been closed in however long the Circle K has been there. That freaked me out. And then I was like, so I'm bent over. There's so many visuals in this story.
You can.
Oh, that's right. Hey, we got visuals.
We can do this. That way they can see you stand up a little bit better.
I don't know, but I'm bent over with my ass in the air, and I'm cleaning the windows on this thing. I'm cleaning up the windows. One of my jobs. Ching ching. The door next to me opens, and what I see is like bare legs from knee to foot, open shoe, unlaced tennis shoes, brand new tennis shoes, super. And I look up and it's like the Izog shorts. You can just see the little Izog thing on the bottom.
Because you're bent over cleaning the bottom of the door.
Cleaning the bottom.
Gotcha.
All I see is the customer walk in.
Okay.
And very ludicrously, I don't look up and see him. He walks in, and I hear him walk past me. And I'm like, okay, customer walked in. I'm still cleaning the day. It's 1 a.m., 2 a.m. at this point. And it's a little bit judgmental, I guess, because I saw clean shoes. Mm-hmm. I saw expensive shoes. So I chilled immediately.
Right.
So I'm like, okay. So walks over into the store, and suddenly it gets very, 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 very Eddie Murphy. Like, Eddie Murphy, like my butt got hot. I'm like, my butt's hot. What's going on? I got this weird feeling, and I look over. I stand up and look over my shoulder, and there's this dude, very clean cut dude. Izog shorts. He's got the little polo shirt on. He's all that, and he's wearing the shorts are not terry cloth, but gym short material, like the sweatpant material.
Okay. Yeah.
Short. And he's bent over the ice cream thing. He's got one hand on the ice cream thing. He's got his other hand on his joint, and he's stroking himself, staring at my ass. And I'm like, what? What do I do? I'm like, my first instinct was to run out the fucking door and just go and I was like, but I can't leave the store. Uh-huh. I'm like, oh, what do I? And he's like, and then it creeps me out because I'm like looking at him. He met my eye.
Oh no!
And didn't stop. He didn't stop, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? What do I do? So, when in stress, soldiers rely on their training. So my training said, I looked up and I said, is there anything I can help you with? Immediately realized that was the wrong thing to say at that moment. I was like, oh, Jesus, no, I don't want to help him with that. But it worked. He stopped because I think it freaked him.
When you actually spoke.
When I spoke, Is there
anything I can help you with?
Is there anything I can help you with? Because that's what clerks say, right? Yeah. So then I was like, okay, bad. Get behind the counter. Get behind the counter. So I go over, I had to get near him, go around the corner, and I'm just, okay, I'm behind the counter, I'm behind the register, in my happy place, I'm in the safe zone. Jackson takes a frozen Three Musketeers bar out of the cooler, closes it, struts over to the counter, boner, full pushing out of his shorts, not out. It's still inside the shorts.
Right.
He was stroking it through the shorts.
Okay.
But fully visible, and he's proud. And he walks up and he looks at me, and he's got a frozen Three Musketeers bar in his hand. And he puts $1 on the counter. And I'm looking at him. And I pick up the dollar like this. I ring it up and I drop it into the machine. And I put the change on the counter. And he takes the change and he walks out of the store.
Oh my God.
Out he goes.
He didn't say a word.
Never spoke. Dude never spoke. Clean cut dude. Frat boy looking.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Totally clean cut. Walks out. I'm like, holy crap. Night shift is crazy.
You've got so many stories, but that is my favorite one because of your punchline. Is there anything I can help you with?
Is there anything I can help you with? I
didn't mean that.
I did not mean that.
And then there's part of me that's like, I bet that was a frat boy dare. Like, do you think it could have been a frat boy dare?
If it was the deepest, clearest expression of frat boy homo, like latent, not willing to admit who they really are.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
I don't know. It felt like a coked up dude after hours.
Gotcha.
Who was trying to get off somehow.
Sure.
But he didn't have enough coke to actually.
And he liked your ass.
You know. I don't know. I guess I was wearing a long like Circle K frock, right? White. I'm wearing jeans and shit. I mean, like, what is going on? You know, and part of me was like, me, really?
Were you like, well, thank you.
I didn't realize that was like a set of things out there that I guess all things, everyone has a place. You're attractive to someone. I mean, you know, it was crazy. That was just one of many fucking things that happened at that store.
Oh yes,
Bet.
It was absolutely crazy.
Yeah, late night convenience store stuff is always crazy.
Yeah, it was super crazy.
And then you've got thousands of stories regardless of Circle K. God, I was just thinking of you driving, peeing your pants. Anyway, the list goes on and on and on.
Need to mention that one.
Oh, sorry. And in Taiwan, the tale of the disappearing dog. That was an email series, folks, that we got as a family, and maybe some of your friends. We got an email series of the disappearing dog. Yeah. Outside a restaurant in Taiwan.
The disappearing dog might be a decent way to end the show.
Oh, you think?
That story is fucking ridiculous.
It is. And have you heard it straight from him, or have I only given you the tidbits?
I've heard it from him, and I don't know. It's strong. It's a strong one.
It's strong.
Before we do that, I want to take just a break from talking to Brent for just a second and talk about a couple of things. The Sertoma skirmish is coming up on the 23rd, and now Mama Gail is part of the Queen City Sertoma Club. And this Queen City Sertoma Club, Sertoma, everybody in this area knows that this is a service to mankind is where Sertoma comes from. And this is a fundraiser for the Girls and Boys Club. So this skirmish is something like you get in your car, your team of people, and you follow these clues, and you pick up these clues, and you win some prizes and money.
Kind of like a scavenger hunt.
Kind of a scavenger hunt, thing like that. So anyway, it's going on April 23rd during the morning to mid-afternoon, and they could use some more carloads. So if you go to Queen City Sertoma Skirmish and go and follow the links to the things, you can find out more about it and do that. I just wanted to say that for Mama Gail. We're doing it. We've
already signed up.
We've registered.
Doing it. And what is it? Did you already say $500?
I think the prize is
who wins?
First prize is, or it's $500 total, and they split it different ways or something like this. You can win money for this.
I don't know the deets.
For having a good time.
That's Dan's bullshit news.
That's Dan's bullshit news.
There is reward. There is bands. Music, I mean.
Yeah, the Henderson kids are playing at the end of it. After the winner is chosen, there's back at the Queen City Sertoma's headquarters, which is all, I didn't write that down because if you were interested, you can Google that and find it. The band plays.
So come and join us. Try to beat me and Tara.
Yeah.
Because we're going to win this.
Because we're going to win this damn skirmish. We're going to beat that shit.
Yeah,
and also,
we're going to do it for reals.
Everybody go out and see Eric Gales tomorrow night at the Outland Ballroom. We're not sponsored to say that or anything, but he is freaking phenomenal.
He's church.
He is church.
He's church. He would make Brent believe in God.
Yes. I think that is probably true. His talent.
Challenge accepted.
And the last thing I want to just yak about before we get this amazing story and end the show, we could be going another hour with this story because it's amazing. These two big fat wine bottles were left on our porch on Tuesday, the night that you arrived from Sweden, with a note that said...
It said... Thought it might be a wine kind of night.
So...
One thing I think is interesting to bring up about this is we're not 100% sure who left it on the porch.
Not 100%.
We have our suspicions
94%.
now. But we did have Mama Gail on the show a few weeks back, and she told a story about how one way to kind of grow within yourself, spiritually, mentally, all these kinds of things, which was advice that she had gotten from another person in her life, was to do something for somebody and don't take any credit for it and don't ever tell anyone. And if you're real ninja about it, you could literally not tell anyone for the rest of your life. You just do something.
You just knew you did something good.
Totally amazing, and don't ever worry about taking the credit for it. So that was a couple weeks ago, week and a half, or a couple weeks later, which was about 4 days ago. We have 2 giant bottles of wine sitting on our front porch with just a note that says, "Hey, sounds like a wine kind of night."
No signature. I mean,
It's
can't
not
see it over
signed.
there,
No one took credit for it. And I don't know. I'm just maybe connecting dots that Mom's story about doing a blessing for somebody without taking credit for it might have happened as a result of that conversation with her.
but maybe so.
But Tara and I are just being a little too forensic about figuring out who the fuck did it. But so far, no one has taken 100% credit for it.
No, but someone has taken probably, in my opinion, 94% credit.
Well, but they didn't.
She didn't say yes.
They didn't offer it.
No.
We've probed.
I probed 4 or 5
So what I'm
different
saying
people.
is I still think it's an inspiration of that same
I
story
agree.
of doing something without getting credit.
I bet
Otherwise,
it
they would have
is.
signed their name.
Right, or they would have just knocked on the door or texted us and said,
But
hey.
it was just more like, I'd like to bless you without getting credit.
was
So I think that's
wonderful.
pretty cool.
So that's why we haven't tapped into it yet. We wanted to wait and just kind of talk about it tonight. So thank you. Thank you very much, our little wine angels who dropped this off on our front porch.
Yeah. I'm glad it didn't get stolen. Because
Yeah.
they're very big bottles. I don't know if you can tell from the GoPro camera.
Hand
but
me one. I'll show it in my hand.
No, they're not. And these two were, you could see them
Look
from
at that. Look how big that is.
when I was pulling into the driveway, I was like, great Scott, look at those bottles of wine.
Yeah. When you sent me the
So,
picture originally, I was like, holy moly, that's awesome. And then I got home and they're like giant bottles.
Well, I told you in the beginning that I really did not feel the need to do any research on Brent. I hope what I've said has been validated. He's a great storyteller and just the best brother-in-law for sure.
Best brother ever.
I mean that honestly. I had my little just in case cards
Okay.
over here, but I don't think I need them
Okay.
at all. It's kind of a way to stimulate conversation, but I don't think we need that.
Okay.
I just don't. And I forgot about the disappearing dog story until it just got brought up, and that made me think that's a fucking great way to close her out.
And so let me introduce this by the fact that you are not much of a letter writer.
No.
You're not much of a texter. You're not much of an emailer.
He's definitely not a Twitterer.
No. He is
Twitter.
a tweeter.
A tweeter.
A tweeter.
Right.
One who tweets.
And so during some years, you wouldn't hear from Brent for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But we never worried because he was fine. He just doesn't send emails or whatever. And he would rebut by saying, nobody emailed me or nobody called me. Nobody called me. I was an emailer. But we wouldn't hear from him forever. And then all of a sudden, I don't want to give this story away, here started this email series while he was in Taiwan.
Just end it there. Just end it there.
I shall sit back.
Turn over the floor.
Little bit of a struggle with this. This is in the category of stories that I have that I'm not quite sure I remember what the best parts are.
Right.
Because I've told it lots of times, and like everyone has a different favorite part of things. So if
Yeah.
I've missed something you want me to clarify,
Right.
remind me because I might leave out the best part.
Oh, yeah.
Let me preface it by saying where I was when I was writing these notes.
Okay.
There was a computer lab when you still like no one had their own computers or
Yeah.
no one had the phone.
Yeah.
So the Shida is the Chinese university where you take Chinese lessons, and they had, as a student there, you had access to the computer lab room. So I'm in this computer lab, and it was on this keyboard, and I'm doing that, and I'm writing these emails, and I'm like, I read this one email that was sent to me by my Uncle Jack, and it was because he was talking to Grandma about where I was and what I was doing. And she said, Mom, he said, Brent's in Taiwan. And her response was, tell Brent to be careful over there in Vietnam. He's got to wear a rubber. He's going to get gonorrhea. And I read that when I was in the room, and I started cracking up. And everybody's like, what are you laughing about? And I just, my grandma thinks I'm in Vietnam. I mean, it's like, it's not Vietnam. So that's where I was in writing this. I hope I get this right, but
it's a long time ago.
Shada is in this one street. You go down the street, and then I got another thing, and I got a bus. I didn't have a motorcycle yet, so I was taking the bus across the town to get to the Taekwondo school where I was, because at the time I was like, I just knew Taekwondo from high school, right? And I was like, I want to train martial arts. There's another story about how I didn't end up doing Tai Chi, which is tragic and terrible, but that's another time. So I'm going to Taekwondo lessons. And I go down, and I had to walk the same strip of territory every week, right? 3 times a week. I'm going there all the time. And I go down there, and I'm walking, and the streets in Taiwan are crowded and packed and filled with parked motorcycles, and the sidewalks there's overhangs under the buildings, and then you walk in this thing, and it takes you weeks to figure out how to move through a crowd, because everybody, like, excuse me is a physical gesture. Like, you say excuse me by touching people gently and sliding around them. It's very strange to just stop and get out of the way. Right. Because if you did that for everybody, you'd never get anywhere. I mean, so everybody's just fluid, flowing, all flow. Why should I stop my life for you? Why should you stop your life for me? Let's just move around each other and get busy. And then with occasional pauses, and there's noodle shops and all different things going on. And just stuff. Oftentimes stuff in cages. Birds in cages, chickens up on a balcony, or whatever it is. And I'm going by, and there's this little dog in a cage, like a Pomeranian, but a little bigger. I mean, it wasn't really a beagle. I mean, it was like just a mutt in there, And dog culture is different. Now, as soon as we say dogs in China, it's like, oh my God, they're eating the dog, But the thing is, they only truly eat black dogs in the winter as a preventative for colds and flus in certain places. You're never going to ever be served dog, because if you are, you're charged extra, and not in Taiwan. It's not something they do in Taiwan. It's only in certain things. It's not even a thing. I have never actually seen a place where you can actually get that. Okay. But I'm walking by, and I'm new in Taiwan, and I'm not really versed in this. And I see this dog, and he's in the cage, and he's barking, and he's loud, and he's there. So I walk past, and I go to Taekwondo. Okay, and I come home, and I go home another way. And trip 2, maybe 3 days later, I'm walking down, and I'm going by, and I'm walking down the thing, and the dog is barking. He's still in there. I'm like, dog looks different. Something's going on. It's like, is his tail gone? I don't know. That was weird. But I'm in a crowd. I'm moving on. And I move on, and I go down and around the thing. And again, I don't know if this matches your memory of the story.
So far, it is.
And then I'm doing Taekwondo 3 days a week, maybe. Sometimes extra day on the weekends or whatever. And I go down. I'm going from where my apartment is. I go to the Chinese school. After school, I go down and do Taekwondo. And now I'm like, okay, fuck. His whole back leg is gone. Oh, no. Like, is that the same dog? What? And I'm looking at it. It's the same dog, but its leg is gone. But the thing is, I'm also like, is it the same dog? Because it doesn't look like it's a fresh missing leg wound. Right. It looks like, is that? Yeah, you're not like getting all up in the dog, because its owner might go, well, don't look at my legless dog. I mean,
tailless, legless.
Back off. I'm like, God, that's weird. Okay, so I go by, and I tell you, next time I walk past, okay, it's starting to lose fur. It's got like patches now that are missing.
This is a matter of days in between. A matter of days
in between. I was like, how does that happen? Is somebody shaving this dog now in spots? Right. Is it a diseased dog that's just rapidly? Does it have Ebola? And it's falling apart. They're like, what's going on with the dog? So again, I go through a couple days later, 2-3 days later. Maybe it was 2 sessions later, and maybe it's 5 days at the most. Go back, and I'm like, okay, it's missing another leg.
Oh no!
It's pawing around on 2 front legs.
Oh my God!
It's like, and it's like jolly. It's like it's the same attitude. It's still barking its ass off when I'm walking by, but it just doesn't have any back legs anymore. and it's missing more fur. And I'm like, whoa, that's not on. What's going on? I'm like, I had to stop. I checked. I was like, it doesn't look like that happened recently, though. So is this a different dog?
Right.
And then I'm like, if it is a different dog, why do they keep changing it out with less and less dog? Right. I'm like, I don't know what they're
How
doing.
many damn dogs are back there?
Is it? And then then you go and then and I'm thinking like, okay, is it just a sick dog? If it's a sick dog, why are they keeping it there? Why isn't it in front of a noodle shop? I mean, it's like, what? I mean, that's not such a big deal because there's the weirdest things in front of the weirdest things.
Sure.
Yeah.
You just have everything's on top of each other, and it's totally normal to have a Victoria's Secret style fancy underwear shop right next to a stinky like fermented fish tofu shop.
Oh, God.
Right.
It's run by a grandma who has a table and a stool, and she has like a sterno cooking thing, and she cooks it up, and it's delicious. It's the best food ever. and she's selling it right next to this fancy shop. It's perfectly normal.
Right.
At that time, it's changed a lot in the last. All facts are 35 years old.
Yes.
So times go on, things advance, things change. I'm sure certain it's different now. I go past, and this, and I'm. It's days later. I'm going, and now the dog's there, still has his front legs, no hair,
None.
like tufts, a few tufts. I'm like, what's going on? Okay, the dog's disappearing more and more, and then I come by another day, it's still there. Maybe one of the ears is a little gone. I'm like, okay, it's rotting away. This dog is rotting away as I walk past it all the time. And at one point, I walked past, and the dog was gone. Empty cage.
Empty cage.
Cage was still there.
Right.
Cage was still there. And every time I would look back, whose fucking dog is this?
Or does anybody else notice this?
Does anybody else notice the dog is just slowly disappearing? I mean, I don't know. I'm looking around for somebody. Am I the only person that sees this? Is it even really happening?
Like, what have I been drinking or eating?
Yeah, what's going on? I'm just trying to go.
Can't
to
those
Taekwondo.
emails be put into like a short book?
Do you have them?
I don't. I searched for them.
Because
I searched and
you
searched.
still have your AOL mail.
Yes, I do.
And I don't. And I wrote those at the time on the school server, and I had to transfer them to a different mail, and I'm not sure it made the transfer, and I'm not sure I have any of those mails.
And I don't know if it's. I don't know if
old school
we've
email.
actually
Yes. Wasn't-
described it well, but he wrote this out kind of like a story, one email
Email at a time.
Right.
And
Each
that's
day
what
a
he
different
was
email.
sending to the family. So everybody was really excited about the next episode.
Part 2, the
So
tale of the disappearing dog.
Yeah.
So here's the latest on the disappearing dog.
Yeah. Brent couldn't write, "Hi, how are you? Miss you."
Right.
Yeah.
It was 2 pages.
Here's
of
my way of
chapter
communicating and
1.
saying hello to
Yeah.
the family.
Yeah. Fucking, I don't know.
So you did not go talk to the store owner.
No.
We still don't
What's
know.
up with that fucking dog?
We still don't know.
Multiple reasons why not.
Sure.
My Chinese was nowhere near good enough yet
Gotcha.
to be able to do it. Number 2 would have been the owner more than likely spoke Taiwanese and not Chinese, which is a totally different language. And I just wouldn't have known what to say.
Number 3, you might die for asking.
Yeah. That's right.
I don't know.
Or they're gonna find me in the fucking cage with a missing foot.
You're next. Boom. That's how the story. That's how the sci-fi ends.
That's how
As
the
soon as
sci-fi-
you- soon as
Twilight
you-
Zone episode.
As soon as you ask about the dog, then it's Brent in the
He's in
cage,
there all like,
and the movie ends.
oh my God. That's totally a Twilight Zone
Oh my
episode.
God!
Now you're gonna disappear.
Holy Jesus! And I just never knew what was going on with that poor dog.
Oh my
It
God.
was horrible. It was horrible.
And this was a great story, and it's exactly what I remember. And but the emails, like you said, the emails were so detailed, and they were long. It wasn't just he went by and he had lost a leg. No, it wasn't that.
I would
You were
really
very
like
detailed.
to get
Oh
my
my
hands on
God.
those because I have so few written successes. I mean, no, I don't mean I got published. What I mean is I have so few. I struggle to get things. Now I do have well over 100 pages and it's a lot of stuff that you and I would both know about, Tara. That
you've told me.
You might enjoy reading those things
Yes.
just to see some of that. And but I'd like to have those if you can find
I'll search again, but I know I looked back and couldn't
They've got to
find them.
be somewhere.
It seems like can I talk to AOL and
Surely
say,
your dad printed them out on a dot matrix printer.
He did, but it's still working.
Yeah, right.
It's not quite done with the last page.
That's right. It's been 30 years,
Yeah.
but here comes the final period on that. Oh my God, I'll look again. But man, oh my God, if I could find those, it'd be fantastic. Okay. Wow. And I assure you, people that are watching, listening, there are millions of stories. Do you have any thoughts? I know you have these 100 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to be a memoir? A proper, memoir?
It's yes. I years ago, after I finished, I was teaching kindergarten at ISGR, International School in Gothenburg, 4.5 years. I took a sabbatical, and for that year, I wrote and I trained Aikido. So I had saved up enough money to have a certain amount of money per month, and I just lived off of that for a year and did nothing but write and train. Probably why I ended up in a divorce shortly after, because I was just writing and training all the time. No, that's not why it was her fault. See, I learned how to footnote from Dungeons and Dragons.
There you go.
Yeah, because I'm chaotic good. So I bought this used crappy laptop, which was awesome. I loved it. And I sat in it. I would go swimming every morning, and then I would go to the cafe and I would sit down and buy a cheap breakfast. I would write or sit and do nothing. But my commitment was I'm going to write. And writing could be sitting, not typing a single thing for 2 hours. But the time is there. You either write or you do nothing fucking else.
Yeah.
And then more often than not, it turned into a page or two, sometimes 10, sometimes 4 good sentences, sometimes 4 embarrassing stories that no one needs to read. But I got over this and I typed it up, and it really traces the events from the time we moved to Missouri all the way to the end of my freshman year.
Of high school?
Of high school. It could go beyond. It's the scope also goes beyond, because there's a whole section of stories. Because I learned that I can't write chronologically. I started writing where the passion lied.
Yeah.
And I just started going there, and that became super successful, and that's where I got that off. But that led to a whole set of stories that can't be a part of that because they're outside the time frame, which are all the learning and development of Dungeons and Dragons in 6th grade, which was in California. And that whole set of stories from there, which are separate but connected. So it is a memoir of that time, and I think it's a pretty amazing set of stories that I haven't had the balls to share with anyone yet. But they're good. That there's, it was a very special time for, I think, both of us, in terms of, you were very sad to leave California, and I was very ambivalent. I didn't care because I didn't have much to leave, and moving to Missouri sort of saved me, because the kids in that class were just so wonderful to me. And for no reason at all.
And once I got here, I became a country girl.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I fucking love it here.
Yeah.
I switched pretty quick, but
Absolutely.
I was very sad to leave.
Yeah, you were sad to leave. And what I mean is it somehow worked out. And it was really important for both of us to have moved here.
Yeah.
You would have gone to a better school in California in Santa Cruz. Could I have had a better teacher than Mr. George?
No. We both
would,
had him too.
Would your life be better if you hadn't had Clyde?
Right. No.
Oh my God, these were the strangest, most amazing people. Mr. George, definitely one of the teachers I will never forget. And,
That's right.
And when I just got finished redoing an entire unit for my 6th graders, and I got asked the question, where did you get the inspiration for that idea? I said, my 8th grade teacher, Mr. George, who taught us a little bit of stuff in the mornings, and we were a town all after you did the same
Yep.
process.
He did it every
Yeah.
year.
every year.
It's the only classroom we all ever had that taught us life.
yeah, man.
And we learned how to write checks.
Yep.
We learned how to look at stocks in the paper,
Yeah,
et cetera, et cetera.
How the
Debate.
government works. We were
Yes.
divided into the House
Voting.
and the Senate.
Voting on politicians in the class.
Right on.
Certain people actually
I
were.
won. I was mayor.
I was not. I didn't want to speak in front of anyone.
Yeah.
But, and mind you, anyone who's listening, this is a tiny fucking town.
Yeah.
The town population was like 110 or something.
There were 12 people in my 8th grade.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I
there
mean-
were probably 15 in mine.
Yeah.
In 8th grade, that's 1/8 grade in this entire town of these little, and we were such a small town. We were shuttled to a high school that was a large town of 550.
Right.
So this was tiny, and we had two of the best teachers I ever had, and our music teacher who inspired us came to this tiny little place and all that. So, yes.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Very underrated. I mean, again, he was teaching from an era when you could and many people didn't get educated past 8th grade.
Yeah.
So 8th grade was life skills.
Yes.
Go get a job and decide how to run your life now.
And some of those kids did that in 1980, 82,
Yeah.
83, 84.
one guy in my class just didn't go to high school.
Yep.
I was like, I couldn't fathom it. I was like, what?
Some of those kids quit and started working.
Yeah.
Either on the farm or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it was and I think they were better prepared because they had Mr. George.
I agree.
You know, I mean, talk about life education. He was a no bullshit dude.
Oh, absolutely. He was the principal too,
He was
but
you know what I mean?
he didn't have to teach.
And he was big and strong as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and if you did something wrong, he just grabbed you by the shirt and picked you up.
Yep.
Don't do that.
And it was like, oh,
And
should
you're
you?
like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was like, like you told me about picking up the foal.
Yeah.
You pick that thing up and you get it used to you holding it.
You establish the dominance
Yeah.
the day it's born, and it sees you its whole life as bigger than you.
And I'm leery of the word dominance is the correct technical term.
Sure.
With Mr. George, it wasn't dominance. It was crystal clear communication.
Sure.
He was never violent. It was never anything like that. But you knew where he stood and you knew what he meant.
Mm-hmm.
And he used that to just make sure you knew what you were talking about. And he treated you fairly every time.
Yes. And back then,
He never picked me up.
no, me neither. But
You know what I mean?
I this is back in the day when paddling still happened. Do you call that corporal punishment? Capital is death.
Capital's death sentence.
Right. They didn't,
I always mix that up.
They didn't
You know?
kill children.
Yeah, we had capital punishment back in high school.
So there were kids getting swats at this high school in 1982, 83.
I got swatted.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Misbehaving? I never did. But in that day and age, and he did have to in certain circumstances, and it was a matter of have to in his eyes. But there were other disciplinary actions that he took that were amazing.
Yeah.
Embarrassment was one of his favorite, which would be frowned upon in this day and age with, oh, don't shame our children. However, he only did it when you were being a smartass or something that deserved this type of punishment. For instance, Johnny, I won't mention his last name, a kid named Johnny, it was math. It wasn't math class. It was one class. It was math time. And he was teaching and blah, 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 and asking, raise your hand if you know the answer. And Johnny was over there, no phones, of course, but he was just fiddle farting around and he wasn't paying attention. It's like, Johnny, pay attention. What's the answer? And he goes, 62 or whatever number he said. And Mr. George just goes, I'll be right back. He left the classroom, goes and gets the tallest ladder he can find, brings it in, sets it up. It almost hits the ceiling of the classroom between the lights that were hanging there. He unfolds it. He says, Johnny, step over here, please. Okay. I want you to climb as high as you can on this ladder. Go ahead. He climbs up to the top of this ladder as far as he can go without hitting his head on the ceiling. He goes, now, I want you to reach in your pocket, grab those numbers that you just rattled out, and put them back in the air where you got them. What?
Yeah.
Pay attention, kiddo.
Yeah.
And he literally and he went on teaching the class. And Johnny's just,
Put the numbers in the air.
how long am I supposed to do this? And it was like, I don't know, it seemed like forever, but it might have been 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, Johnny, go ahead and sit down. Left the ladder in the class and finished math. And that taught us all more than a SWAT, for instance.
And that's the difficulty with with teaching teachers to teach. I mean, you can argue with whether or not that's appropriate. I think it's fine.
I think it is.
Because it's unexpected, it's creative, it's nonviolent, and it's a little funny.
It's super
You
funny.
know? I mean, and it kind of, in a way, gently just goes, it curbs the behavior. And it's an action. It's like a Zen teacher, who the Zen tradition is like, no, the only thing that matters is actions. So if you're going to speak words, you got to have an action behind it, which means that's the ladder. That's the trip up the ladder. It's the imagery of putting him back in the air. He could have just said, stop making shit up, but instead he makes this dramatic moment out of it that we're talking about now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's education, and his purposes were always clear.
Yes.
He never had a derogatory purpose. It was to further the betterment of that person and the rest of the class.
Yes, and it was clear that it just wasn't a wrong answer.
Right. Yeah.
The kid was just like, "Pfft."
Wake up, grow up, because he's addressing the real issue for the child, not his learning disability with math, because
Right.
he's got dyscalculia.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
It's the quote unquote math version of dyslexia.
Okay.
And it's a real deal. Many people have this where they can't deal with numbers and stuff like that. But the number of people that actually have it versus the number of people that say they have it is radically lower.
I'm sure.
I mean, and he was just like, no, the problem is attention. Have I got your attention yet, Johnny? And once he's got it, then he can do something with it.
Yeah.
And then now Johnny might be reminded to keep himself under control.
True that.
I mean, I know it's true. We done?
What do you think? This has been phenomenal.
So fun.
Super
I mean,
fun.
obviously we have done it before without recording, but we can talk all freaking night.
Yeah,
These stories are great. I hope everybody had a great time with Brent from. Well, you are officially from Sweden. You're over there. You're over
I'm
there
from here, but
I know.
I live there.
And you're here for a few more days to help out around here and just hang out, and you'll be back with your entire family in the summer. And
Yes.
I look forward to that. You got anything at the?
Yeah, we'll have to set a meet and greet up
Right.
in the summer.
That's right, with all the folks. All right,
Can I
Brent
come
and
meet
Talents.
that guy that was
We'll
on
have
your
a
show?
Meet and greet right here in the studio. We'll drink champagne.
No, it'll be out in public.
Oh, out in public somewhere. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you guys for watching. And once again, I'm going to start scrolling some stuff across the bottom of the page. If you feel like supporting the show, awesome. If you already do, we thank you very, very much. It helps us keep our software up and going and buying new stuff when stuff breaks and things like that. So we appreciate you one and all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Want to play that song one more time? Yes.
right there.
And officially, I didn't say this at the beginning, but I wrote this song for Mr. Brent over here.
Mr. Brent, you wrote that song for your brother.
Yes, I know. I know.
You
I
got to
did.
say my brother.
And you muted me.
Who muted you?
You muted that channel.
Well, yeah, because we're not ready to play it yet.
We'll get out of here with the same song. And once again, thank you all so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Love those pictures.
Do you remember when you taught me how to ride a bike? You said I'll push you along, you just hold on real tight. We were going real fast, so I said, okay, let go. You already did, but I didn't know. I went crashing down on a soft spot in the street. I guess I had forgotten to use my feet. But ever since then, I've never forgotten the things you've done to help me along the way. And though I don't say thank you too often, this is my chance to say thanks a million. Do you remember when you were just about 5? When I was just 3 and never left your side. Tying my shoes was such a big deal. things you've done to help me along the way. And oh, I don't say thank you too often. This is my chance to say thanks a million. One night, sometime in high school, you were sick of your kid sister, it's true. You gave me a hug when I needed it most. There's no better big brother than you. Ever since then, I've never forgotten the things you've done to help me along the way. And oh, I don't say thank you too often. This is my chance to say thanks a million. Oh, thanks a million. Thanks a million.
Tune in live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central.
On the Unsung Screamers Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Twitter.
And check out our Unsung Screamers podcast.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Ah!